March 15, 2022. Before we have roll call, I have an invocation by Mr. Mike Lagarde, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, support each of us in this meeting tonight. We ask your divine help in the difficult tasks ahead of us as we represent others. The issues we will address tonight are many, and there are many solutions, but they may not be easy. Dear God, help us as we serve this school board parish and as elected officials, and be with us for the right thing tonight forever. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Lagarde. Item 4, we have roll call, please. Ms. Brunet.
Mr. Michael Lagarde.
Here.
Mr. Gregory Harding.
Here.
Mr. Matthew Ford.
Here.
Mrs. Debbie Benoit.
Here.
Mrs. Stacy Solé.
Here.
Mr. Clyde Hamner.
Here.
Mr. Roger Dale DeHart.
Here.
Dr. Maybelle Trahan.
Here.
Mr. Dane Voisin.
Here.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Brunet. Matter pertaining to interview of applicants for the new superintendent of Turbine Parish School District. We have 5 applicants tonight that are present with us. Good afternoon, candidates. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the candidates for applying to become our next superintendent of the school district. We have over 15,000 students, about 2,000 employees, and 34 schools. I would also like to thank the general public for coming out today to be part of this moment in history. Tonight, we will interview 5 candidates whose wishes to become our next superintendent. Each candidate will have a 5-minute opening, a 20-minute questioning and answer session, and a 5-minute closing. Each board member will have a chance to ask one question to each candidate. That question may change with each candidate if he or she choose to do so. On March 22nd, 2022, the board will hold another meeting here in this board room at 6 p.m. to select our next superintendent. Between that time, if any board members have a need for clarity of any questions that was asked or answered, at that particular time, as an individual board member, they can reach out to each one of these candidates. Also on March 22nd, 2022, each board member will cast their voice vote for who they choose to be the next superintendent. I will start with a roll call vote. It takes 5 votes, which is a majority, to become our next superintendent. After each board member have cast their vote, I will direct Ms. Brunet, Dr. Yarborough, who's our personnel director, and our attorney, Stan Duvall, will tally up the votes. If there is a tie or no candidate have the majority of vote, we take the top 2 or top 3 and vote again until we have a majority. The candidates tonight, I'm going to introduce Mr. Corey Butler, Mr. Aubrey Ogeron, Dr. C. Michael Robinson, Mr. Mark Talbot, and Mr. Clyde Washington. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking out your opportunity, your time to invest in interested in being the next superintendent of Turbine Parish. Once the applicant interview is complete, the applicant will have the option to sit in the audience, return to the lounge, or have the option to leave the meeting completely. Refreshments will be provided in the board conference room and light refreshments for the applicants in the lounge. All applicants was informed and advised not to have any cell phones in their possession or iPads, etc. with them to the interview. Once the applicants are introduced, Mr. Jan Blanchard, Administrative Secretary, will escort the applicants to the lounge for refreshments. as the first interview will begin. Upon completion of each interview, Dr. Jarvo will escort the next applicant to the boardroom for their interview, and the process will continue such until all candidates have been interviewed. So at this particular time, the first candidate, y'all got to escort him out?
Mr. Harding, while they're moving, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
The agenda says 5 to 5:30. We done used 6 minutes of the
Well,
time.
we're gonna
Okay.
extend that time. She's the
Thank you.
clock keeper.
That's what they
I took
deserve.
about 5 minutes of
That's
Mr.
okay.
Butler's
That's
time.
fine. Thank you.
Okay,
I just want to be fair to everyone.
right. The first candidate is Mr. Corey Butler.
Good evening. You good? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks
Hello.
for having me. As one of the criterias for this particular opportunity, each applicant was obviously asked to submit a video. I had an opportunity to submit that to you guys, so you guys had an opportunity to see that. And I mentioned a few things in terms of goals, what my vision is for this particular district. And what I'd like to be able to do at this point in time is to issue out what that looks like strategically as far as a 90-day plan is concerned.
Mr. Butler, could you speak a little louder? Doc can't hear you.
Can you hear me? All right, all right, all right. All right. During the course of my interview, I was able to pinpoint and be able to identify various goals, my vision for Terrebonne Parish School District, and then the development of a comprehensive strategic plan for our district. So in doing so, what I'd like to be able to do at this point in time is to be able to issue each one of you my 90-day plan to support that particular vision and those goals, if that's okay with you. Okay.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I'll give you a few minutes to peruse it. I'll be willing to take any questions pertaining to the strategic plan, and we can go from there.
You ready for the question session?
I'm ready.
Okay, all right. At this particular time, I'm going to start to my left, Mr. Dan Vizan.
Thank you, President Harding. Thank you, Mr. Butler.
How you doing?
Good to see you. My question, I would like you to focus on the morale of our educators. Teachers have a huge influence on children's lives. They have been feeling overwhelmed and unsupported even before COVID and Ida. Teachers are continuously being asked to add to their plates. We need to encourage teachers to inspire students. Teachers have the power to impact students' lives positively or negatively. Teachers can motivate students to achieve great things. If you are our next superintendent, how would you address this very important issue that we have been facing for several years? How do we get back to letting our teachers teach and inspire our young minds?
Good question. Thank you for the question. First of all, as superintendent, the first thing that I would do is to issue a teacher morale survey so that we can begin to address some of those issues that they're feeling head on. It's important to be able to get the input from teachers to begin with, not just teachers, but also leaders, because they have a lot on their plates just as well. So that would be my first approach. The second thing that I would do was be able to I would create an advisory committee for teachers so that we can also meet on a monthly basis, because issues do come about on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, each month. As far as teachers having a lot on their plate, currently in my current position, I address a lot of those concerns when I go into schools. So teacher support is paramount. We have to find ways, become innovative in our strategies in terms of being able to support administrators and teachers. Our presence in schools, sometimes it's instrumental in being able to get them to feel valued, and I know what that feels like. As principal, I had a lot of support at a school that has historically did not perform well. And so it was instrumental, it was very instrumental for not only for the leadership and the instructional team to get out to classrooms to support teachers and support them with the content, but also we had conversations that were informal. You know, sometimes just opening the door and being able to say good morning means a lot. People have things that are going on in their lives every day. We also have to research ways to be able to simplify instruction. It can't just be about data. Teachers are not numbers, students are not numbers. If you treat people correctly, if you treat them like you want to be treated, you find value in people, and then they know that you value them, then what you can accomplish is, really, the sky is the limit. The support that I got from some of you, actually, it helped me in my growth. It helped me in my day-to-day activities. Being able to support teachers, I think we first start with the issuance of the morale surveys. That's going to be significant in terms of those results and being able to have those conversations. And look, a lot of times philosophies do not align. Let's just be honest. However, they still should have a voice. We still should be able to give time to listen.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Soley? Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. Butler, what communication methods will you use between the district and the community? How are you going to get information back and forth?
Well, as you know, we have social media. We do have a district website already. We have a radio station. We also have a journal that's been identified for us with the Homer Today. So those are means that we can utilize. But in communities, you also have, historically, pastors of churches that we tend to flock to or we utilize in that communication aspect just as well. So I would like to meet with various community leaders. It's been something that I've done in past capacities. As far as our district website, I really believe that it needs to cater to parents. We need to be able to have those frequently asked questions so that parents are able to find the answers to their questions without having to contact you guys so often. I think that'll assist in our communication methods. Any available tool that's out there, current tools, i.e. social media, text messages, we have a J-call system, often, and we have to be transparent as often as possible. Building trust is first. So communication is key. Without the trust from parents in our community, our success is limited. And so it's been my experience that if we are also able to issue out weekly parent letters, just to inform them, hey, look, this is what's going on in my particular school, this is what's going on in the district as a whole, this is what we have upcoming. Keeping them abreast of what we're doing is also just as important as being able to communicate what we're doing with the teachers and at the school levels and the leaders just as well. So parents are an integral part of what we do. We have to find a way to be able to get them more readily involved in what we do in terms of the decision-making process. So utilizing all our opportunities to communicate is also paramount.
Well, thank you, Ms. Soley. Mr. Lagarde?
Mr. Butler.
Good evening.
Okay. My question, considering the decisions that many superintendents face, how would your input make my community, District 1, feel comfortable, and that is the people who are often forgot about, the students, the cooks, the bus drivers, some administrators, the people who are on the lower level of the ladder, that they don't feel they could communicate with the superintendent. How would you make those people feel comfortable that they can have an open dialogue with you? What would you do, or strategy would you have?
As a son of a retired educator, I was always taught that no one part is larger than the whole. Everybody has value. That goes from the people that clean the floors, the cooks who prepare the food for students to ensure that they have healthy meals, the secretaries who take the messages. All of those people play a role in terms of the education of a child. The old African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. I holistically embrace that. But again, finding value in even the people at the very lowest is important because they matter. I can tell you every head custodian I've ever had at my schools. Miss Sandra Smith at Ellender High School, Miss Wanda at East St. John High School, Miss Claudette, who's now at East Street School. Those people matter to me. It was important for me to be able to have those conversations with my cooks, with my janitors, and I did go above and beyond for those individuals. You know, we're required, our custodians are required to put 2 coats of wax on the floor. Well, to make our environment more inviting at Ellender, my custodians went through, or I should say our custodians, because it's a team approach. They did the extra. They always put 4 coats to ensure, especially in those heavy traffic areas. That was important. That meant something. So I took the time out, utilized my own money to treat them. Sometimes it's just the little things that you do that makes a difference. And you talk to those people. I met with my custodians, my cooks, my secretaries often. I had fruitful conversations with them, not just about the day-to-day operational aspect of it, of what we were there to do, but also about how's your family? What about the kids? Most of the kids I actually taught, or I've given a diploma to. So that was important for me to be able to have those conversations with those individuals too. Again, no one part is larger than the whole. I treat them with the same respect that I've treated administrators and teachers alike. Bus drivers, just the same. We have to find ways to be able to incentivize also in paying people what they value. Because just like everybody, each one of us were impacted by the COVID virus, they were impacted by Hurricane Ida, guess what? Those people were hurting too. And so you can't forget about those because bus drivers, and I'll say this, are responsible for getting our kids to and from school so that they can get the education that we are delivering to our students. So they're just as important as the custodians, as the cooks, as the secretaries, and any other support personnel, the paraprofessionals, just as well. Everybody has a role in the education of a child. And when we embody the notion that we are there to educate the whole child, there will be relationships that children will have with these individuals that you can't even begin to think about. And that is so important for us, especially as we try to manage a school with behavior just as well, in terms of when students are transitioning to and from class. They are people with it that are in those same communities. So you can't forget about those people. They're important. That's how I was able to keep a pulse on my school. And that's how I still am able to keep a pulse on our schools in my current capacity.
Thank you, Mr. DeGard. Dr. Tron?
Thank you, sir. Hello.
Good evening, Dr. Trahan.
This parish has been through a lot this year.
It has.
Terrebonne Parish has been devastated. We weren't even sure we would have a public school system in the first weeks of September of this year. There is no promise that we won't have another storm this summer.
True.
God help us. What is your vision for this parish's infrastructure? And have you visited our schools to see where we are right now.
Yes, ma'am. I take great pride in visiting our schools. It's not just about the bricks and mortar. It's about the people. And again, I reiterate the fact that I find value in people. That was something that I learned a long time ago. But as far as our infrastructure, if you had the opportunity to look at the 90-day strategic plan that lies in front of you, the first order is to meet with all of our contractors that have been approved by you guys. And in doing so, the first thing that I'd like to be able to establish are timelines so that we can tell the public what to expect and when to expect it. It's important for them to know where their tax dollars are being spent. I visited schools along with our warehouse director, Mr. Celestine. I've been there, and I've been able to give my input in terms of how we should approach different things, as I was assigned to various schools by our current superintendent. So as far as school recovery, Dr. Trahan, I got to be honest with you. My career in administration started in school recovery after Katrina and Rita devastated the New Orleans community. I had the shell of a school. So I know the pain that our communities are feeling. I know the importance of being able to communicate effectively and efficiently and often. And I know what it means to be transparent just as well. It's paramount for us to be able to give consistent updates, weekly updates. It's also and just as important for us to be able to establish potential timelines for when schools are able to return back to their sites, i.e. Ellender High School, South Terrebonne High School, Upper Little Caillou, Grand Caillou Middle. It's important. And let me tell you something, it just doesn't stop there. I was also an administrator in St. John the Baptist Parish after Hurricane Isaac devastated that community. I know what it means and what it feels like and the work that goes involved in being able to move a whole school to another campus. That was difficult for that community, but I also know the pride that was there in that community just as well. And so it took all of us to be able to unite to bring everybody back, to reestablish that pride that once existed. That's what we have to do, but it has to be a collective effort by all of us, not just the folks that are working at the schools, not just the teachers, not just the custodians, but you guys along with the superintendent and the district level employees. It's going to take all of us to bring back that sense of pride. So as far as our infrastructure, the first thing that I would do would be able to meet with our approved contractors. And like I said, it doesn't stop there. When I was at East St. John High School, even when I became the superintendent, I was still dealing with some of the remnants of Hurricane Isaac and that move. So it's an extensive process. We have to ensure that we are spending our dollars and tax dollars the right way and that we get reimbursed by FEMA just as well. And that's an extensive process. It doesn't stop. I would tell you, we can think about the move back in 2 years, but essentially it's going to take longer than that because we have to deal with the warranty issues, potentially leaking roofs just as well. Prior to me coming back to Terrebonne Parish, I was still dealing with Myers Engineers for a leaking roof because of something that they didn't do correctly. So we have a monumental task that lies in front of us. But let me tell you what can help out. Us being visible in those schools at the district level, and you guys too, with your support, being visible to let those principals know, look, we're going to be all right. It's going to be okay, and encouraging them so they can continue to inspire what they're there for, the young people, the students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trahan. Mr. Roger DeHart.
No comments at this time, no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Matt Ford.
Mr. Butler.
Yes, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Earlier, you mentioned transparency to build trust, and that's a segue into what I was going to ask.
Okay.
You know, as superintendent, you are the face of the district. You're the person that's in front of the camera and has to speak up and on behalf of the district. So what I want to know is, what does transparency mean to you?
being honest, all the time. It's not a part-time gig. I've been in the Terrebonne Parish school community all of my life. I've worked both in and outside of this school system. In fact, in the agency that I work for in Boys and Girls Clubs of America, the home of Terrebonne branch, I actually partnership with this very same school district. In fact, I partnered with one of your board members, one of my board members, Mr. Clyde Hamlin, when he was the principal at Legion Park. I have spent a lifetime formulating relationships with people. People know that I am a person that prides himself on his integrity. I was taught that by my father and mother. Still water runs deep with me. A person's word means something. It's supposed to. Other than that, I was just kind of told that if you don't have a word, then you call that person a liar. Obviously, we can't use that terminology, because of who we represent. But the truth is just that, the truth. And so, whether, you have to have tough conversations with people, even, as I mentioned earlier with Mr. Voisin's question, even when your philosophies do not align, you still have to sit down to be able to reach a consensus. And then publicly, there has to be a united front that we collectively have to present to people, because people are entrusting us with their children. That's important. I don't take that for granted, Mr. Ford. It was the reason why myself and a group of other educators that I'd like to call family at Ellender, at Oak Lawn, at East Street, at East St. John, that's why we had a consensus. Whatever we did, and Lord knows during our professional learning communities, there were a lot of disagreements on how we were going to approach being able to support students and teachers. But when we stepped outside of that room, we were one. Building trust is important. That means not just saying the right things with coin terms. People can see through that kind of stuff. That's not who I am. That's never been, and it never will. You ask me a question, I'm going to give you an honest answer all the time.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Ms. Debbie Benmore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hi, Mr. Butler.
Hello, Ms. Benmore.
So, new studies reveal that the role of the local superintendent is evolving. And although it's not clear exactly what the role will become in the future, it's certain that uncertainty will be the hallmark of the job. That will require a different set of expectations from those that are exiting the profession today. We do see an uncertain political climate that surrounds schools. We require the superintendent to be proficient in politics and the art of persuasion. Much of the work will revolve around the ability to create and maintain relationships, just as you mentioned. The modern superintendent will not be just a superintendent of schools whose job is to oversee and manage it, but he will be a superintendent that will have to navigate an uncertain terrain with skill and finesse. Are you prepared to be a modern superintendent? And if so, how might you accomplish this?
It's a good question. However, I must say that my preparation didn't just start. I've been working in this community I started in law enforcement, where you have to build trust, and you know the climate as it exists today when it comes to law enforcement. I was also a youth program director. Everything that I've done, Ms. Benwell, has been centered around what's in the best interest of children. That means that I got to get out in the community. When you want to know what's going on in the community, you got to go out in the community. And there is not a one that I can't go in where folks can identify with me and me with them. I was born and raised here. This is home. Now, as far as being able to persuade someone, my father once told me that power is the ability to be able to get people to do the things that you need them to do despite their resistance. that means something to me. Power in the wrong hands can also be a dangerous thing. That's not who I am. Character is also defined as being able to do the right thing when nobody's looking. That's who Corey Butler is. That's who I've always been. That's why I do this job. However, I'm able to address the elephants in the room at the same time. I do have tough conversations. As stated, there were many opportunities, many meetings that I've conducted, both my leadership teams and I, to whereas we didn't agree, but we had to reach a consensus for children. We have to do that on a daily basis in education. So that is not a new phenomenon that needs to be addressed, not from me at least. The question is that can the superintendent be able to unite people for the common cause of educating children? My track record proves that. In Terrebonne Parish, outside of Terrebonne Parish, I was even entrusted by the Department of Education to do it statewide. So I've been a modern superintendent for a long time, not even serving in the capacity. But now the opportunity presents itself. So therefore, I'm ready to seize the moment, ready to move this great district forward, and I think by bringing people together, we will be stronger for the task. We will have to have some of those tough conversations, however, and in doing so, we will collectively be able to make decisions that are in the best interest of this great district, but in the best interest of the people that we serve, children.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benoit. Mr. Clyde Hamner.
Mr. Butler, the Houma Chamber of Commerce and the Terrebonne Parish School Board have a strategic partnership in education. 4 years ago, the Chamber introduced 13 points of education that the business community believes to be of vital interest to the citizens of Terrebonne Parish. One of these points includes early childhood education and the implementation of universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds in Terrebonne Parish. How would your plan for the parish or your philosophy of education fit in with this goal?
If there was one thing that I agree with the Build Back Better plan, that's expanding universal pre-K. When we are able to provide equitable opportunities for young people to be able to receive the necessary skill set that's needed to be able to read prior to entering in 3rd grade, prior to statewide testing, we all win. So, first of all, I am a proponent of expanding early childhood, universal pre-K. It's imperative that we continue to foster those relationships with the current Type 3 providers for early child care. In terms of early child care programs, it's imperative that we continue to foster those types of relationships. And for any new and up-and-coming program that is created, I want those too. By expanding universal pre-K, there are a couple of things that we'll be able to do in terms of how it will impact our schools. Not only will we be able to continue to provide the structure that's needed, we'll be able to add additional classrooms because the income barrier will be removed. It will be open to everybody. For those parents that do not meet the qualifications because of the income criteria, they'll have an opportunity, as stated, which don't hurt them right here as well. It has an economical impact just as well. When kids are introduced to the skills that they need by entering into early childhood programs, that has significant impacts in terms of kids being identified as special ed 504. Our misconception is this, because don't get this twisted, Mr. Hamner, as I explain this. The misconception is that a student's reading ability impacts their ability to think and problem solve. Research don't support that. Not at all. That's why it's so imperative that we continue to also introduce those kids upon exiting early childhood programs into our schools with a Tier 1 curriculum. What's equally as important is that we equip our trained professionals, our teachers, with the skill set to be able to instruct, because lesson delivery is just as important as exposing children to a Tier 1 curriculum. My philosophy is that we also need to look at specializing in true elementary schools. What I mean by that is simply this. We need to look at our grade configuration with an emphasis on pre-K through 4th grade. That's true elementary to me. And if you have done your homework, which I know you have, that's 4 years that educators get the chance to spend with children. Those relationships are just as important. It gives educators an opportunity to address lost learning. It also gives educators an opportunity to be able to vertically align curriculum just as well. That's important. And if the goal is about positive student achievement, once again, it's a win-win situation by expanding early childhood programs. Now we can impact the masses as opposed to a particular group of students based upon their parents' income.
Mr. DeHart?
Sir?
You want to come back?
I'm ready.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Hamlin. Mr. Butler, how you doing, sir?
I'm great.
Okay,
You?
my question to you is kind of similar to what Mr. Lagarde asked. We as a school district are always talking about we are A, B school district.
Mm.
But when I look at schools in my district, we're always in the caboose.
Mm.
And it's okay that these other schools are sitting in first class, or should I say head of the line, but then yet it seems like we continue on using the same bait to get a different result. So if you selected as the next superintendent, what would you do different that have not been done in the past, or go out the box and creativity to try to help those schools that's on the lower end of tadpole?
Well, as you know, the pendulum continues to swing in education in terms of student achievement. And certainly, you know, I've been around in education for a while at various levels. And rules change, laws change, we rename things. That's just how things go in education. But one thing that I know for certain is what Act 1 did. It gives you guys the opportunity to hire a transformational leader like myself, which transformational leaders are needed all over the country. What it also did was it gave you the authority to be able to hire a superintendent. That superintendent then has the ability to be able to put the right leaders without any political ties into these schools to be able to lead them. You see, it's not just about managing schools. We also, well, let me back up for just a second, because I got to talk a little bit about what happened to me becoming a transformational leader as Mr. Martin selected me to enter into the Turnaround Specialist program. Now, that program incorporates both business and educational philosophies, and when those two philosophies are integrated, then essentially what it did was it taught me how to transform a school, being able to select qualified personnel, being intentional in terms of the infrastructures that we put into place in schools, i.e. curriculum teams at the school level. I came from a TAP school district. TAP, as majority of you probably know about, it did a few things. We did a few things, which is what I believe that needs to be done at lower performing schools. Because It was a platform that we instituted without even knowing it at Ellender High School. We met on a weekly basis, which has to be done in all schools. We analyzed student data to student academic data to be able to plan for next steps. We assessed often, formally and informally. Informally, through exit tickets. It gave us a bird's eye view to be able to see what support students needed so that we can adjust lessons and instruction. That's what has to happen in schools that has historically performed low. But you also have to have the right leader. So we have to be intentional in terms of our professional development opportunities that we select in terms of being able to train our leaders in schools. No longer are the day of just managers. No longer. You have to be an instructional leader. I started out as a manager. That's not the person that you see before you today. We have to be innovative and creative at the same time and understand that you can catch more flies with honey than what you can with vinegar. Retain the people that you have by giving them the appropriate training that's needed. Recruit new talent to be able to come in to support what we're trying to do, and that's impact young people. So the first order of business is we have to, once again, at the district level, with our district level instructional leadership teams, reinstitute building level walkthroughs. We have to be able to inspect what we expect. If we don't do that, how do we know what's working? So the first order of business would be what we would do at the district level to help support schools in this quest. We assess often in a timely fashion, and in doing so, we integrate old learning or lost learning into what students currently have to learn. Because oftentimes at low-level performing schools, students are behind. By doing this, we are able to prepare students for two things: college and career readiness. That has a significant impact on crime as well as the economy here. To have graduates that are equipped with the skill set that's needed to work, to go into those high-wage, high-paying jobs, that's significant. Not just for the child, but also for us. I don't want somebody breaking into my house because they didn't get the education that we were supposed to guarantee that they got. Now, obviously, we're going to need parental support just at the same time, but these are some of the structures that we have to be intentional in when we are talking about putting in place. So it starts with what we do at the district level, how we select leaders, and then how those leaders select talented teachers. The goal is to ensure that we have a certified and a qualified teacher in front of every student in this parish, in every classroom. I was told as a little boy that there's nothing more important than the instructor and the quality of the instructor that stands in front of children, because where there's quality teaching, quality learning transpires.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. The question and answer session have come to conclusion. At this particular time, now we give you 5 minutes for your closing remarks, sir.
Thank you. In closing, I'd like to say the reason why I want to become superintendent. I'm passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about young people. In education, we oftentimes talk about delayed gratification because we don't always see the fruits of our labor right away. I want to be the voice for those parents who are not heard or have the ability to be able to communicate. They just simply want a quality education for their child. The voice for those teachers who have worked tirelessly to ensure that those very same students get that quality education. But no one seems to notice. Also, the voice for the leaders that we've selected, who have an array of ideas that no one seems to have an ear for, like me at the district level. Those people matter. I want to be a superintendent. I want to be the superintendent, as it was told to me and taught to me so long ago, because my father and my mother have been such an influence on me. What good would my success be if I couldn't reach back to give the next person their opportunity like it was given to me in 1995? Furthermore, I have a vested interest in this school district. I still have a child in one of our schools. So decisions that we make here, it impacts her. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here, committed. I've worked in this community, again, for children, and I'll continue to do so. I'd like to thank everybody for considering my candidacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Thank you. Dr. Yarbrough? Good afternoon, Mr. Orgeron.
Good afternoon.
Again, you'll have 5 minutes of introduction, 20 minutes or more for question and answering, because sometimes the questions or the answering was a little longer, and then you would have a 5-minute closing. You got it.
Good evening again. I want to start off by saying this. I'm so thankful and grateful to Superintendent Martin for allowing me to work in this district. It's been a blessing for me. You know, for the last 6.5 years, I've worked hard to lead alongside Superintendent Martin to run our district. I've also worked hard to make relationships at every level. We've had great people, great people. Some of them are here tonight, many of them are here tonight. Many of them are watching online. And my team and I have also worked hard to improve academic outcomes for all of our kids in all of our schools. As a matter of fact, we helped improve academic outcomes every year but one, and that was a COVID year. Despite all the hardships of COVID, we put together a model instructional plan that year. It was a plan that consisted of online lessons, hard copy packets, we had grab-and-go meals, we even had teachers step up to get video so that we can place those lessons on HTV. Unbelievable. Now, when the full school year, 2020-2021 school year rolled around, we can't thank our teachers enough for the job they did. With all the challenges of COVID, they rose to the occasion, and we were successful because of that. Particularly the teachers who did double duty. We had some doing their regular job during the day and virtual after. We were successful because of that as a district. Matter of fact, we moved from the 19th ranked district to the 14th ranked district in Louisiana out of 70 districts. Our graduation rate improved at 94%, one of the highest in Louisiana. And we were the 6th highest top growth district in Louisiana, which means this. Our kids either scored advanced or mastery, or they were on track to mastery, which is on grade level, better than the majority of kids in Louisiana. Finally, We are down to one D school. One D school. And that school, they managed to have the second highest growth in Terrebonne Parish with 5.5 points during the COVID year, unheard of. So we know they've got a strong leadership team at that school, strong teachers that are going to make it this year. Bottom line, we have a strong instructional system. It's very comprehensive, and we've got strong leaders that are supportive of their teachers who really get it done every day in the classroom for kids. Our teachers do that every day. So for me, it was never about accomplishments and accolades for this job that I'm interviewing for now. I just wanted to do a good job because I was thankful and grateful to be here. Now, with that said, I look forward to the possibility of moving forward with IDA recovery. We've got a lot of work to do. I look forward to moving forward with a facility master plan that can guide us for decades to come. And I also look forward to work through some of the priorities in my vision that can really guide and shape us in years to come. Thank you for this time. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Orgeron. I'll start over to the right, Mr. Hamner.
Mr. Orgeron, the Houma Terrebonne Chamber of Commerce and the Terrebonne Parish School Board have a strategic partnership in education. 4 years ago, the Chamber introduced 13 points of education that the business community believes to be of vital interest to the citizens of Terrebonne Parish. One of these points includes early childhood education and the implementation of universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds in Terrebonne Parish. How would your plan for Terrebonne Parish or your philosophy of education, either or, fit in with this goal?
Good question. So,
Mr. Orgeron, is your mic on?
no, is it on? Now it is.
Okay.
So I'd say to that, do I have to do the introduction over? I mean, for the camp.
I'll deduct your time.
So, Mr. Hamner, to that point, I say let's do it. Universal pre-K. I'm all in favor for it. We've done some research on that. We've been looking at it. We're pretty confident we can pay for it at least for a couple of years with federal money. And I've looked at how many kids are not coming to us as pre-K kids that come to us at kindergarten. For the last 5 years, there's about a 225 average of kids who come to us in kindergarten that didn't come to us in pre-K. So you figure 220, how many teachers, where are they located? There's a lot of logistics that have to go into it. We got to find out where they're going to go, because this might be concentrated in one school because of the income threshold. So we've got to make sure we have capacity at those schools. We got to make sure we can fund it or sustain it. And it all depends on how much of a priority it is for us as a system. So getting back to the other part, you asked, philosophy-wise, well, early childhood is so important. And if you ask people that are in elementary schools, they'll tell you the kids who come as pre-K kids are so far ahead of the other kids, and they can really hit the ground running when they come to them as kindergarten kids and really start the learning process earlier. You know, it's procedural things and all of those things about pre-K that they learn and get that out of the way. So when they come as K, they can really, you know, for lack of a better word, go to town learning. And literacy and numeracy in K is second to none. Early childhood is where we get our start for years to come. So I would really like to get together and look at as soon as 2022, 23, we can possibly get this done. So that's where I'm at on universal pre-K. And by the way, if anybody's listening, I thought about this as I was preparing. Universal pre-K is not mandatory pre-K. It means it's open to everybody, but not required. Some parents want to just keep their kids home, which is fine, and we understand that. So it's universal. It's for every kid.
Thank you, Mr. Hamner. Ms. Benoit.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Orgeron.
Hi.
So new studies reveal that the role of local superintendents is evolving. And although it's not clear what the role will become in the future, it seems certain that uncertainty will be the hallmark of the job. That will require a different set of expectations from those that are exiting the profession today. We do see an uncertain political climate that now surrounds schools with requiring the superintendent to be proficient in politics and the art of persuasion. Much of the work will revolve around the ability to create and maintain relationships, especially within the community. The modern superintendent will not be a superintendent of schools whose job is just to manage and oversee. He will be a superintendent that will have to navigate an uncertain terrain with skills and finesse. Do you feel like you're prepared to be that modern superintendent? And if so, please speak to how that might be accomplished.
Okay, good one. Yeah, I feel I'm prepared. I think we'll all say that we're prepared. I've been in a lot of situations. I've presented to various boards. I've presented to large groups. It's all preparation for being connected to people. I've met a lot of people. I'm a current Rotary member, so there's a lot of connections I'm making with the community. The community wants to know, as a board, as a leader of their school, that we're making decisions that are wise and transparent. So a lot of these interactions will help break those barriers. And if you're available to these groups, if you're available and you make the connections, they feel they can access you and ask you questions at any time. So I think it's very important that we continue, as a superintendent, to schedule those things. And as part of my priorities and my entry plan, actually, is to meet with those groups from Kiwanis, of various Rotaries, talk about our vision, and get them to know who I am so that we can have that open line of communication. Vital. So I think I'm looking forward to that in actuality. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Benoit. Mr. Ford.
Mr. Ogeron, there is a great need in this district for a Terrebonne Center for Excellence. Students that are gifted both in the arts and science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and also with the JROTC program. So what I'm asking is, what do you envision for Terrebonne Parish with regards to those programs? And do you have a plan or something that you'd like to share with us?
Okay, very good. So that is something that I aspire to as soon as possible. I know we have so much going on, right? So it'll be hard to fit that in immediately, but and in my video, I call it, whether you call it a magnet school or an academy of sorts, it's vital to our kids. We talked to kids a couple of years ago, right prior to COVID, and we asked high school kids to come in, and we asked them, how can we better serve you? I think we had about 10 from every school, so we had about 40 kids in a room. Overwhelmingly, their response to us was, we need access to more opportunities for various classes that we can't take at our school. So it was clear at that point that that's something kids are asking for. It's not something that's research-based. It's from the kids. And I think of certain teachers, and I'll use Mr. Chris Brown at South Terrebonne. He teaches a class called Forensic Science. Okay? He made it himself, the curriculum himself. But it's only offered to South Terrebonne kids. If you would take a program like that, centrally located, access from all 4 schools would be available to that kind of program. I could go down the line as some of our excellent teachers that would probably enjoy to be housed in a central location like a magnet school or something of that nature. And they could do it for half a day, then go back to their base school the second half of the day, either morning or afternoon, just like we do VOTEC, same kind of thing. And I know we've talked a lot about performing arts. I think performing arts could be an academy or a pathway within this school. It doesn't have to be that specific, but it could be one of the things we offer. And I talked a lot about computer programming, cybersecurity. I'll give you another, for instance. We have a teacher at Ellender, at Terrebonne right here. He worked for the federal government, the NSA, and different agencies like that. He's a computer genius. He would be the kind of person that we would never have access to. So if we put him at a central spot, every kid could come take what he has to offer, which is enormous. So those kind of, and I'll say this too, which is another big reason why I think it's so important. Some of our high schools, we don't even offer physics because we don't have teachers that can teach those level courses. That shouldn't happen. If we have a central spot, I'll ask the best physics teacher, would you like to come here half a day, have access to all the kids at that level, and I think they'd jump at it. So those are the kind of things we could do at a school like this. Now look, we can even consider jumpstart-like courses that, and I was thinking about this, music production. It doesn't have to be the performing arts. It could be where we mix tapes and we do things like that that appeals to kids that otherwise we wouldn't appeal to. So there's a lot of things we can do at a school like this. So I think it should be bumped as high as we can in our priority list of things that we need to do as soon as we can, within reason.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Mr. DeHart.
No question.
Dr. Trahan.
Good evening, Mr. Ogeron.
Good evening, Mr. Trone.
Mike, I want to ask you tonight is our teachers.
Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes they feel like they're the last one on the totem pole to get attention, which they're not, but we don't intend them to be, but they feel like they are.
Yes, ma'am.
They need many resources to be successful in the classroom. How will you ensure that they get those resources? I'm talking about training, networking, planning time, and all these things that make them more efficient.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, for that question, and I'm not going to say this is the culprit or the reason, but the last 2 years have been probably the most difficult out of all of our, in my career. And for me personally, being relegated to the office was difficult. You know, for teachers, being relegated to their room and not being able to associate and team and collaborate and all those things was so hard. So I think a lot of what they're experiencing, not all of it, but some of it, is due to just the last couple of years. I think that'll subside, and we'll get back to more of the normal times where we could do a lot more collaboration. So I think I just wanted to start that answer off with that. But one of the things that we strive, and I think we need to continue to strive to do, and whether we're successful or not, I'd have to have people tell us how we can improve. Teachers, how can we improve? But we really strive to keep our professional development as relevant to the curriculum that they're teaching as possible. So we're using Eureka Math. So all of our math professional development is about Eureka Math. We're not trying to do strategies and all of these other programs that really don't pertain to directly to the curriculum they have. We use guidebooks. So all of our PD is from American Reading Company, which is very relevant. So I think PD being relevant is essential and crucial. That's probably where I would head for that, but I'd like to hear more from what they feel. I really want to know what they feel, how they feel we can improve, so we can respond to that. That's something I think we could probably do with making our ERC a little more robust and enhance kind of who's at the table for that committee. I've been talking to some people on the ERC to kind of about how we can improve that whole committee so that we can have more voice contribution from our teachers about things like that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Trahan. Mr. Lagarde.
Hello, Mr. Ogeron. How you doing?
I'm good, sir.
Okay, my question is empathetic compassion. We just went through the hurricane.
Yes, sir.
We went through Ida, and just everyday life. Our people had a tough time, and I got many calls that people just didn't have the money, the time to come to work. And the biggest thing, though, it was the compassion. And I want to know what compassion or plan would you input to help our employees? And what would you do those administrators or supervisors who are just mean or racist on our employees? Would you have a plan, like hurricane days, or come up with something if they can't come to work without taking his sick time?
Mm-hmm. So I think every one of those situations, Mr. Lagarde, are you talking about any particular group of employees or just employees in general?
Employees in general are just having a tough time because of a situation.
Okay, all right. So I think we take each one on an individual basis and we give them as much support as we can in a legal way. As far as we can legally support them, we need to do that. You know, there gets to a point where you have to draw the line somewhere. So I think at some point, you get to that point. As far as, you know, and one of the things, as far as the way we treat or the way we speak to people. I think that's one of the things that I would like to think principals would think that I've been stressing that. With staff, I mean, we're very conscious about how we respond, how we react, how we interact with people. We had Marcia Tate here a while back, and her principles apply to every situation. It was all about greeting people and welcoming people and saying hello and just connecting with people. That is so important that we connect and not visit schools because we have an issue with a school. Visit a school because we want to see the learning. We want to be welcoming. We want to just be supportive. That's a cultural thing that I think we can really get better at. I believe that. If and when that happens, it would be addressed, no doubt. We would, and that's one thing I will be consistent and firm with those kind of things because culture is everything. And if we're belittling or not treating people properly, that's a problem. And it festers.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. God. Ms. Solis.
Kind of answered this a little bit, but maybe you can expound on it. What communication methods would you use between the district and the community? I know you talked about Kiwanis and stuff, but I'm just talking about like school communities themselves.
Okay, very good. Yes, ma'am. And I was thinking about it as Ms. Benoit last night brought up about communicating the plan, the recovery plan, like we need it in layman's terms, like how can we do that? And whether it's a program, and I mentioned a program in my video called School Status, or whether we use J-Campus or J-Calls, I really believe in videoing the superintendent, whether it be quarterly or as needed, and we could simply put a link out to a school where they can get it on their phone with the video of the person in charge giving them the message that they need to hear. It could be about anything. It could be about recovery plan. It could be whatever's pertinent or relevant to that school, and you could do it by school, so only the parents at that school that have submitted their numbers would get that. So I think that's something we shouldn't shy away from and probably do more of. It could get very specific to a group of schools, a region, a school, what have you. But I think that kind of message goes a long way. And it was something through the storm. It was so difficult, but that is something I would like to kind of look at doing more of. That kind of thing. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Solis. Mr. Vizan.
Yes, sir. Mr. Ogeron?
Hello.
You kind of addressed one of the questions, but I'm going to ask you, if you are our next superintendent, what qualities would you be looking for in an assistant superintendent as well as central office supervisors, and why?
Okay. Okay, so I think if my position's vacated, we would need, as a district, a curriculum and instruction lead. That would be the primary qualification or qualities I'd be looking at. Somebody who's well-versed in K-12 curriculum. That is so essential. I've worked in a district where there was not a person that was in charge of that. They were all equal, and it was a difficult situation when everybody's on the same level. So there's got to be one person who can really make the decisions, ultimately make the decisions. So that would be first and foremost what I'm looking for. Other than that, it depends what position you're talking about, but because each one is a little different, each one requires different qualities and traits. But we need people, no matter what position, who like and do things for kids. That has to be where their heart's at. If it's not there, they're probably not the best choice to come here. So I think that's probably why I'm here, is because I've been good at that, and not because I try to be. It's just a natural thing. I'm good with kids, and I love doing work and serving kids. So that would probably cover everything. That one quality alone. The rest we can teach. The rest they'll learn, because they're all going to be smart people that are going to be here. So if we can have that, the heart first, we'll be in good shape. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vizan. Mr. Ogeron.
Yes, sir.
What, you kind of touched on this a little bit. I want you to expand a little more. Actually, the question I was going to ask was just asked, so I had to deviate from the question. What experience have prepared you for the role of a superintendent?
Okay, very good. So, and I was going to use this in my closing, but I'll say it now. And it was in my resume. My background is diverse. I've got a diverse background, and I began as a special ed teacher. I was a high school science teacher. I taught biology and environmental science, so I was in the classroom. I was good. Then I took LaSip. Then I became pretty good. You know, I was never like one of the teachers of the year kind of teachers, but I was pretty good because I believed and I understood hands-on instruction. And that, when you can do that with high school, you can do it at any level, and it makes kids retain when they could feel things and touch and collaborate and talk inside the class. That's the kind of teacher I was. Then I became an administrator at an elementary. So I have almost 4 years of experience at the elementary. And I was a middle school assistant principal and a principal at a middle school, 5'8". Actually 6'8", I'm sorry. And then I was a high school assistant principal, and I learned everything I could probably learn about discipline. PBIS at the time was just starting. I learned all about that. And as a principal, and we have principals in this audience, it's probably the job where you make the toughest decisions. It's a daily decision-making job, and you're making decisions with kids. You're enforcing rules, and you're putting kids in situations because of choices they make, but you've got to enforce because you want to be firm and consistent. So that prepared me. All of those jobs there prepared me to work with supervisors, to work with principals. It's almost like at times I can coach principals. It's probably would be a good title for a lot of things that I do. After that, I became a supervisor of secondary. I supervised 8 middle schools, 3 high schools, and a career magnet center. And I was instrumental. She gave me that as my project. My superintendent said, "It's yours, Bubba. Make it happen." It was already along the way, but I put the final touches on the career magnet center of Lafourche. It was a big and a great experience. And that's working from the architect all the way to the programs inside the school. Everything in between. And I've been here for 6.5 years. And I've led alongside a great superintendent. I've observed him, I've watched him, I've asked him questions. We sit down every morning, and I listen, and I watch him, and I watch him interact, and I watch him how he handles situations with the board. I watch his communication style, and I think all of us would say that there's no questioning his communication skills with you all. And when I put 24/7, I'm watching what Mr. Martin does 24/7. So I've learned that's so important. And as assistant superintendent, sure, I'm in charge of instruction and curriculum, but it allows you to be exposed to a little bit of everything. IDA recovery, all the COVID precautions and all these things. I'm involved with all that. I'm involved with meeting with FEMA during FEMA meetings. I'm with our consultants that are working to get us community development block grant money. All of these things have prepared me for this job. And I'll say this in conclusion. I've been praying about this for a long time. Never to get the job, but that the Lord's will be done. And I think He's put me in situations that allowed me to be prepared for this throughout coaching, teaching, administrative work, and while I was here. So that's why I think I'm ready, and I'm eager. I'm still hungry to do this. I'm still looking forward to make things happen and just take where we're at right now and keep moving forward.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ogeron. It appears that you put all the closing all into one, or you still want your 5 minutes to close?
I'll take a couple of minutes if possible.
Okay. Okay. The question and answer session have been completed. Now, at this particular time, we'll give you 5 minutes in closing.
Okay. So I'm not going to repeat it, but my resume indicates, and I'll put it on my little Bitmoji classroom. If that is available to anybody, you can see the resume and some of the things I've done inside those positions. And like I said, I've been here, and I've been through the COVID. I've been through, and I'm not putting that lightly when I say been through. There was a lot that goes to been through. It's a lot of work. Not by me, but everybody. And we've been through the storm recovery. And I looked at the video last night, those clips. And I looked at you all, and am I the only one that's about to start crying right here? Like, it hit me. That was the first time I saw it. And then I looked beyond the buildings, and I looked at, I looked at the faces of the teachers, of the principals that were getting their schools back. The work Mr. Martin did, the work you did as a board, the work Becky Bro did, Sammy, the staff that's here and that's not here, the work we all did, and the flexibility and the resiliency of the teachers to kind of go into a dilapidated, in some cases, we got back as quick as possible, but it wasn't perfect. They were resilient. They got back. Without questioning, they did it. And you can't say enough about that. And that's what I saw when I saw the clips. I had no idea it was that bad, I'll be honest with you. I didn't see some of those things initially. But with that said, we've got a long way to go. We still have a long way to go. We're not over it. We've got to keep moving. We've got to stay on top of the project managers. We've got to stay on top of our architects. We've got to be part of the process still. They're doing a good job, but we've got to be part of that. We've got to make sure they understand the urgency without getting too far ahead of ourselves and miss parts that we need from FEMA or for FEMA. We've got to keep that in mind. I'm going to say this too. I'm extremely excited that South Terrebonne and Ellender are going to be on site next year. I talked to Daniel Bruce today, the architect. Saturday, they're going to have buildings ready, coming Saturday. So that'll be wonderful to see a modular building. And for anybody listening, they're going to be first class buildings. They're going to be connected by boardwalks and covered walks. We're going to have a cafeteria. We're going to have a band room, everything. They can withstand 170-mile-an-hour winds. So it's not these little buildings. They're quality stuff. So they're going to be on site on a regular schedule next year. So we're looking forward to that. And we're even working on getting the weight room and the field ready so that and you heard that last night, but people might not know that. We're going to get all of that ready so we can have a normal year next year. So I'm excited about that. And I'll just conclude by saying I'm looking forward to the possibility to work with you all. I'm ready. And I'm really looking forward to serving the school district as superintendent. It's been a blessing. I can't express that enough. And I'm looking forward to serving, ultimately, our community. So I thank you for this time.
Thank you, Mr. Ogeron.
Robinson.
Good afternoon, Dr. Michael Robinson. At this particular time, you'll have 5 minutes of introduction, and you have 20 minutes or so of question and answering, and then you have another 5 minutes in closing. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I think I started. I'm going this. Okay, introduction. Okay, I'm gonna start that way. Okay. Yes. Sir.
Okay. Thank you. Of me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
No, sir.
Okay.
I don't want to take your 5 minutes from you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Michael Robinson. I am Born and raised right here in Thibodaux, in Thibodaux, Louisiana. And so this is like home. Terrebonne and Thibodaux is all kind of one and the same. And so, but I grew up in Thibodaux and moved. Most of my adult life was spent on the East Coast in other states. And so I've been in education for 20 plus years, about 22 years that I can put them all together, but it's like 22 years that I've been in education. I started off as a substitute teacher, going to college at Nicholls State University, although I did graduate from Southern University later on. But I started as a substitute teacher and became an elementary teacher, an intermediate teacher, junior high school teacher in Raceland, and moved away and eventually became a high school assistant principal, and eventually moved from there into an elementary principalship, turnaround principal, and then a middle school turnaround principal. I have also served in the capacity of an instructional director, which is like an assistant superintendent in most districts, where I was supervising schools, and then later became a superintendent of schools in Arkansas, which was a very good opportunity and good experience. And then I left that, went into consulting, and I'm currently the chief academic officer in East Baton Rouge Parish, where I'm serving under our current superintendent, Dr. Narcisse. And so for me, this has been, education for me is a calling. It is my mission in life. It is what I enjoy doing. I don't think I would want to be doing anything else. I've tried. You always find your way coming back to what your first love is, and that is education. And so I come from a lineage of educators. My mom was a teacher in Lafourche Parish for 30 plus years. So it's in the blood. But my purpose for being in education is because it is a calling, and it is something that I hold dear and near. I don't do lip service. Very direct about that. I'm in this because I really have a heart for children, and I want to see them excel and exceed and give them the opportunities that maybe I wish I had in school, but I can do that at this level. So that's why I'm in education, and that's why I'm here tonight. You know, I'm reminded, because we grew up where I grew up, my parents' home, there was a sugarcane field there. My dad would, often we would go into the sugarcane field and he would take a stalk of it and cut it and see, but, all that hard exterior didn't look good, but it was what was inside that resonated. And that was the sweet part, that was the juicy part, that's what you were working towards. And so when I'm as an educator, kids come from all different walks of life and perspectives. And it doesn't always look good, but you have to go inside to see who they really are. And that's where the real work happens. That's where the transformation work happens. And so that's why I'm here today.
Thank you, sir. Now we're going to have Mr. Dan Martin.
So thank you, Mr. President. Nice to meet you, Dr. Robinson.
Likewise, thank you.
My question is, teachers have a huge influence on children's lives. Many of them have been feeling overwhelmed and somewhat unsupported even before COVID and Ida. Teachers are continuously being asked to add to their plates. We need to encourage teachers to inspire students. Teachers have the power to impact students' lives positively or negatively. Teachers can motivate students to achieve great things. If you are our next superintendent, how would you address this very important issue that we have been facing for several years? How do we get back to just letting the teachers teach and inspire our young minds?
Thank you for the question. The victory is in the classroom, and that's where we really have to get back to that. As you would get to know me, I am one of the most innovative educators that I know. If I could dream it, I want to try it. But we have to get back to the purpose of why did people go into education to be teachers? And what you hear is, I can't even teach anymore. It's robotic. It's this or it's that. some of that this and that might be necessary, but it's how we approach it. As a former superintendent and even in my current role as a chief academic officer, I spend a lot of time with teachers. We have a teacher advisory committee, which I had as a former superintendent as well, but I work with teachers consistently, administrators as well, but I work with teachers a lot, listening to them, providing an open door and an opportunity to listen. Having that advisory committee is one of the most valuable assets that you can have as a superintendent. And please forgive me, I talk a lot with my hands. But that's one of the most important and valuable instruments that you could use as leverage as a superintendent. You cannot do this work without teachers. These are the people that are on the front line. And having been a teacher myself, I understand the hard work and what you want me to be dedicated. But I also need you to understand that in all of these things that we're asking them to do, what really is the purpose behind it? What's the essence of the work that you're really asking them to do? How much time do you spend? Because as a former superintendent and currently now, I spend a lot of time in schools. That's where the victory really is. And if we're really going to move a district, if we're really going to educate students, I have to be in the schools. And so I talk to teachers all the time. I want to understand, tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. Tell me how I can do the job better. Give me these recommendations. And that's what we do at those advisory committee meetings. It doesn't always feel good because those mandates are coming from the top and they're coming down. But how do we support those teachers? Resources, great. Everybody, they do need a raise. That's important. But I think when you take away the human aspect and you forget that these are human beings, these are people, they have lives, they have feelings, I think we need to get back to that, building those positive relationships with teachers. And so that's one of the things that I would definitely do, is spend a great deal of time with teachers, administrators alike, but with teachers, because I need to understand the decisions that I'm making, how is that impacting that classroom? What does that look like in the classroom? That's why I need to be there in order to see that.
Thank you, Mr. Visor. Ms. Soley?
How are you?
What communication methods would you use as the superintendent to communicate between the district and the community?
I think I am very communicative. I think that is one of my strong suits. I believe, and I have done this as a former superintendent, I do have a lot of advisory committees that I have strategically people are on those committees. And I also had time dedicated monthly to where I would have community meetings where the community could come in. There may be some agenda items that I want to share with them, that I want to get that information out to the community, but then I would spend that time listening. So in the first 90 days, doing a listening tour. But besides that, regularly having those open opportunities for people to communicate, whether it's via email, whether it is through the website. Every week I would have I call it coffee with the superintendent, and where I would share updates. I think the more information that people have, the better they understand. They may not like the decisions, but they respect it and appreciate it more because you're being transparent with them. You're being open with them. You're giving them an opportunity to speak and to hear what they're saying. And for me, that's important. You know, sending flyers out, that's great. Doing robocalls, that's great. I love to do videos. I do a lot of that now. I know that my system, that's how I communicate with them during weekly updates. But I would do the same thing with the public. And sharing the information, we work for the public, so it is public information. But having those round tables, me getting out into the community, I need to spend time with industry leaders. I need to spend time with the industry leaders. I need to spend time with business leaders, small and large. I would have those advisory committee meetings where I would have time to speak with them. not in a rush, but I would make time for that. Purposeful time, working with the Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary, the Kiwanis, the NAACP, engaging with our faith-based leaders, church as I know it, but engaging with them. The sororities, fraternities, the Masons, engaging them. You would find with me that I would spend a lot of time engaging with the public. Why? Because when it's time for me to push the agenda, I need their support. If I'm not present, if I am not engaging with them, and when it's time for me to push something, they don't even know who I am because they never see me. And for me, that's why as a superintendent, you probably will get a little upset because I don't spend much time in the board office. I'm constantly in schools. I'm happy to meet with people, public officials, our legislators, all of these people, the judicial system, the judges, and these are not things that I'm just popping off. These are things that I did because it made a difference in the success of what I was trying to do and the agenda I was trying to move where I was the superintendent. I do still engage with much of that, not all, but much of that in my current role because I'm not the superintendent. But we do assist him in still engaging with that. So that's important, very important. And not to leave out the parents, and students. I have advisory committees for all of that too. Because you need that to help you to do the job. You can't do this by yourself.
Thank you, Ms. Soley. Mr. Legault.
Hello, Dr. Robinson. How you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
Okay. My question is, Dr. Robinson, is that what are your ideas about engaging families who are not experienced or who participate with the school system or have negative experience with education? How would you successfully and respectfully reach out to those families to make them feel comfortable and believe in the school system?
One of the things that I did as a former superintendent, I spent a lot of time dealing with those types of parents and families. They had a bad experience when they were in school, and so here you come from out of state. I was in Arkansas. You're coming from out of state, and you don't know us, and it was all of the negative. But the more time I spent with those families and in the community, so it's not unlikely to see me in my jeans or my shorts, and I'm knocking on doors, and I'm in the community. If there's a community event, I want to be there. If there's something going on in the community, I need to be a part of that. I don't necessarily have to be recognized, but I need to be there because people are going to know who I am. And so when they see me, they're going to engage with me. But spending intimate time with those families and reassuring them that our educational system still works. Spending time in those schools because kids would see me in Walmart and they would say, "Oh, that's the superintendent," because they knew me. Because I spent, and parents would have stopped me in Walmart and asked me questions. And they said, "Well, I'll call and make a meeting. I can talk to you right now. Let's talk right now." And whether I had morning meetings, whether I was going to breakfast with parents, or they were coming to the board office, because it was an open door. And we would spend time, I've had many of them sit in my office, we're both crying, because the situation was horrific. But when we left there, they left reassured that I, as a person, cared about them as a person. Forget about the superintendency. That's just a title. You're a human, I'm a human. And so we're going to work this thing out together because if not, I'm not going to be successful in the things that I want to get done. And reassuring those students that we care and not doing more for this group and less for that group and showing those inequities. We have to work together, and that's what it takes. Constant communication and working collaboratively together as a unit. And that's how I would spend my superintendency, working as a collaborative partner in the community.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gard. Dr. Trahan.
Good evening. Nice to meet you, sir.
Likewise.
I want to turn to budgeting and financial issues. We have a lot of mandates that come down from the state. A lot of them are not funded, as we all know. We have state-required minimum instructional expenditures that we must spend. We have been put in a bad place here with Ida and the money flow trying to get things going with the repair of our infrastructure. How do you plan to keep us rebuilding and keep us viable financially?
You know, the educational system is the avenue for which economic development is going to occur. If you do not have a school system, and that's great that we are B or an A school system, that really is to be commended. But if we are not educating all children and connecting with that community and pushing those students out and providing those opportunities within the school year that they are with us, providing opportunities for them to, whether it's DE courses, whether it's C-Tech or Kate, some people call it different things, but you know, career and college and career readiness and technology and all of that. But that's important. But we have to make sure that we are producing in the school district. That's how we begin to build partnerships with industry leaders. Because when I, as a superintendent, that's part of my job, is to seek revenue for the district, especially in times where we have to do budget cuts, where we're not getting a strong tax base, you know, which that's a part of the revenue that we receive. But we also have to rely on business leaders and partners that we're going to have to go and ask for things from them in order to continue to keep programming, to keep our buildings going. We, you know, yes, you have insurance, but that does not necessarily take care of it all. You still have to take care of that out of your fiscal funds. So as you budget, you're going to have to look at the system. That's what I would do coming in, looking at all of our expenditures in all categories. Staffing, which takes 75 to 80% of your budget, at least 70 to 80% of the budget, that has to be looked at. Looking at various departments. How are we staffing schools? Are they overstaffed? Are they understaffed? Or do we have too many people working in one department and not enough in another? We have to look at all of that. Because you're going to have to, I know it's an ugly word, but you got to make cuts. You're going to have to make cuts in order to produce some things on this side. So you're going to have to look at the amount of revenue that we have that's coming in, and then we need to develop a plan. We have to do a facilities plan, looking at all of our facilities and having someone come in to do a study, doing a salary compensation study as well, looking at that. Because while we're trying to take care of buildings and secure buildings, we also have to make sure that staff is paid. So having that comprehensive budget salary compensation, done. While that's being done, your facilities plan is also being done, because we have to look at, do we have buildings that are beyond repair? Because certainly we don't want to have to close any buildings. So how do we continue to fiscally manage and make it without having to do cuts in the classroom? So we have to look at all of that. And then design a 5-year to 10-year projected plan as to how we're going to be able to do it. That facilities plan is going to be key. And our strategic plan is going to be key in helping us to understand where we're going to have to, and then prioritizing buildings and what is happening in those buildings in terms of the repairs that have to be made. Because at the end of the day, we really don't want to close any buildings. That's the last thing we want to do. And at the end of the day, we still need to build new buildings. So that means that you have to now go back to the community, and you may have to ask for an increase in taxes, which is something nobody wants to hear, and no superintendent wants to die on that hill. But it may be that you have to go and do that. But you're not going to know what you need to do until you've had that facilities study done, that compensation done, and then you look at your projected budget for the next 5 years and the previous 5 years to look at all expenditures. Where are we spending the most money and too much money? And what is the return on the investment? And how is that going to benefit us academically for students, but more importantly, our infrastructure? Because we want to be in business 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now. The decisions that we make now will definitely impact that time, where some of us may not even be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trahan. Mr. Dion.
No question, please, thank you.
Mr. Ford.
Dr. Robinson,
Yes, sir.
recently you've tweeted about various gifted programs. So what I'm curious about is what ideas would you have regarding bringing sort of a Terrebonne Academic Academy of Excellence or something dealing with the arts, with STEM, and possibly even JROTC?
Well, I am a huge proponent and lover of the arts and STEM and STEAM, which is the arts and STEAM. One of the first things, and I was a part of junior ROTC, so I have a huge respect for that as well. When children come to school, they're coming to school because we say we want them to learn, but really the reason that they come, we're to expose them to opportunities and give them access. One of the first things that I would be doing simultaneously to other things that are of importance, but I would be looking at the academic programming for the entire district. I also want to see where programs are located and within the district and which particular schools. What are we doing on the north, the south, the east, and the west? Because one thing that we want to make sure we do is we provide the same opportunities across the district. We don't want to create a utopia of greatness over here while this is going down over here. And so those particular programs, providing the arts, providing magnet programs, IB, International Baccalaureate programs, Junior ROTC, those are not impossible dreams. It takes planning, and that would be one of the first things that I would work with a team across the district to plan and strategically plan those programs out. And it doesn't have to take 5 years for it to happen either. It's determination and hard work that will need to be done, but also keeping in mind our fiscal, our buildings, and our budget, but there are grants that we can get to secure some of these things, like the MSAP grant for magnet innovation. That's how we're able to do a lot of things that we're doing, is through those grants. And I happen to work with a phenomenal magnet coordinator who is who's the national president for magnet, and so I've learned a lot from her. She doesn't know it, but I have. In terms of the financing, I've met with them. There's a lot that we could do through the MSAP grant for innovation. And we don't have to start off big. Introduce it, see how it goes, monitor it as we then expand. One of the things that I'm doing right now is looking at our entire district for programming across the district, looking at the costs, looking at the sustainability of those programs, looking at where they're located, looking at who is being impacted by those programs, because again, we want to be fair. I don't want to use the word equity because sometimes that's a negative in people's mind because we're not talking about race. We're talking about fairness to all children. We're talking about what's happening on the north, the south gets, the east gets, the west gets. So bringing those programs to the district certainly would not be an issue. That's the work that I'm doing right now. And so we could literally have some of those programs, and you'd be surprised that it doesn't cost as much money as you may think. So bringing innovation to the district, to Terrebonne Parish, would be something that I would be honored to be able to do, because that is the work that I'm doing right now. We are currently we just created the Office of Innovation, which encompasses Magnet, the Gifted Office, and we also have these focused choice schools, which when I was a superintendent, I created those. I created one school for elementary for performing arts, another school I created as a STEAM school, and another school I created as an entrepreneurial school. And it does not cost as much money. It's just making sure that you strategically plan and design it and get the curriculum. But, you know, we can take the curriculum that you currently have right now and the scope and sequence to build in those pieces that need to be. But there are so many connections that are out there that would be glad to help us in bringing innovation to Terrebonne Parish.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Ms. Benoit.
Thank you, Mr. Harding, and welcome, Dr. Robinson.
Thank you.
The face of education is constantly changing, and what is one recent trend that you think will have a major influence on school districts in the years to come?
You know, we have to truly be very, very careful about how we're educating students. We cannot educate students the way we did 20 years ago. You just can't. We're losing them. And one of those pieces is around dropout rates. That is a significant issue because school is not fun for every kid, and it does not appeal to every child. We have to be very mindful around the programming, around teaching and learning. What does that look like? How are we engaging? Because if not, we're going to continue to lose our students. And sometimes they're not dropping out, they're just going to other opportunities. And we want to make sure that we are providing opportunities for our students in, going back to the question around innovation. Innovation will help us keep our students in the district so that we don't continue to decline. Parents don't want their children in schools where there isn't an opportunity for certain programs. We have to look at that and design and reimagine. There's a grant called Reimagine through the state that we can apply for some of these things. But we can reimagine what education could look and feel like right here in Terrebonne Parish. The opportunities that I have had being in other states and having other opportunities for employment, I could bring all of that into this position. Because a part of being a visionary leader as a superintendent, you have to be innovative. You cannot keep the status quo. Because if we do, we're going to continue to lose students, and before long, we're going to have a much tougher issue to deal with when it comes to budget. Students is money to the district. So we then have to begin to think about, what do people want? Why are parents taking their kids and bringing them to Vanderbilt? What is so significant about that? And nothing wrong with that, but if that's their choice, because parents should have choice, but why are they doing it? We then have to think about what that looks like for us in Terrebonne Parish. And so if we do not look at education differently, we will, in years to come, we will decline, and we will start to lose students, but we are also going to have a much higher significant dropout rate. And there are some innovative programs that I would love to be able to talk about in another time maybe, around even the dropout prevention and credit recovery.
Thank you, Ms. Benoit. Mr. Hamner.
Hello, Dr. Robinson. It's nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you as well.
Dr. Robinson, the home of Terrebonne Chamber of Commerce and the Terrebonne Parish School Board have a strategic partnership together in education. 4 years ago, the Chamber introduced 13 points of education that the business community believes is of vital interest to the citizens of Terrebonne Parish and the growth of the community. One of these points is early childhood education and the implementation of universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds. How would your plan for for Terrebonne Parish should you be selected as superintendent, and your philosophy of education fit into this worthy goal?
Thank you for that question. We actually just dealt with that in my current district, East Baton Rouge Parish. So it is amazing to me how people think sometimes around education in general. But we say that we, want universal pre-K because it's going to do X, Y, Z. But then we have some people who say, no, I don't really want that, because it gets into an equity issue. And then it also gets into a fiscal issue. But there are so many grants out there, and there is money out there that the federal government has given to states and to districts that we can apply for. I'm a huge proponent of it. I think that if we could get every child to go through pre-K and then enter into kindergarten, our kids would be so much further along. I could actually stand and say without any regret that every second grader will leave and will enter third grade reading at or above grade level, 100%. But sometimes when we make those goals, we have to then think about what has happened between pre-K, if they had the opportunity to get there, what has happened between pre-K and second grade. And so we then have to make sure that we have a strong literacy program and foundation in our school district. That's the essence of where it begins. That's where the exposure begins. That's where the introduction begins, in pre-K. So I'm a firm believer in it. I believe that it is something that we really should pursue. I do understand that we also have to think about the fiscal component of it, so we may not be able to do it in full-fledged in 1 year or 2 years. It may be a staggered implementation. But I'm happy to hear that the chamber is working, number one, is working with the school district. That's a plus. But it's also a plus that is one of their pillars that they were looking at, is universal pre-K. So I am indeed a firm believer that if we can make it happen, I want the opportunity and the access for every child to be able to have universal pre-K. It's up to parents if they accept it or a desire for their children to be in pre-K. But the opportunity would be there. And that would be something that we would work on and through our strategic plan and develop that over time. But the opportunity to work with the chamber has already been extended. So that's the first part, and getting other partners involved in that work as well. And there is a lot of stuff that the state is doing that would afford that. We could also look at incubators. And so even if you don't have space in the district to necessarily house that, you could work with the daycare centers in the community through Terrebonne Parish, where those kids would actually be our kids. We could actually work through that way and be able to get them into pre-K. So it's a win for me. Something I definitely believe in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamner. Good afternoon, Dr. Robinson.
Good afternoon.
As we know, this is year 2022, and 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, we saw a lot of male teachers in the classrooms. And it's not an issue that just in Terrebonne Parish, but it's an issue that we're dealing with probably throughout the nation. Also, we are lacking African American role models in the classroom that kids need an identity with. If you select a superintendent, what ideals that you can probably bring to the table that maybe would address those issues?
Thank you for that question, and I really appreciate that. We have to really change how we do education. So it's becoming less and less appealing to graduates because of all of the deficits that they hear about education. But we have to stand firm in what we believe. And working with Nicholls State University, working with Fletcher College, we could really do some things early on and starting programs in our high schools that would attract students into wanting, and other universities surrounding us as well, but that we could get students at an early age who have a desire to teach. Putting them in a teacher cadet program and training them and working with them and making it appealing for them, especially when you're talking about African American males. But not just dealing with the local. My job as superintendent is to get on a plane, get in my car, and go to where the opportunities lie. That means going to recruit across this nation and bringing people here to Terrebonne Parish and letting them see the greatness that we have here and inspiring them to want to come to Terrebonne Parish to teach. Now, that sounds great. That sounds easy. I've been on that side. I've done that. But that's going to take a lot of work. That's going to take me working with Dr. Depp here and you as a board, because I'm going to need your support when it comes to recruitment, because we can't just recruit on the website and say people are going to come. It's not going to happen. You're going to get locals, and that's great. We do want our locals. But if we're looking for talent, if we're really looking to bring people into Terrebonne Parish, we're going to have to recruit and develop a plan for recruitment that may look different, sound different, feel different from what you're accustomed to doing. So when it comes to that, we're going to have to go out and start talking to every student that is in our high schools. Terrebonne High School, Ellender. We got to get into all of those schools. And when students see the superintendent on a consistent basis, they know you almost by name. They know that what your heart is saying. And when you're appealing to them in that way, and then helping them to get scholarships, because it's going to take money, and we're going to have to look at in a fiscal situation when we have buildings that have to be repaired and we need money for that, when we cannot ask the public for another tax because we've already asked for a tax. We're going to have to find some innovative and creative ways of and how we can recruit. Working with organizations such as AASA and other organizations that are out there, the Council of Great City Schools, working with these organizations to help us to develop a recruitment plan, a robust plan, and then getting out there and actually making it happen. Because as a former superintendent, I did recruitment along with my HR people. I didn't send them, I went with them. And so having job fairs and career fairs, and letting people see that we're out there. It's nothing for me to go to Southland Mall and go stand in the mall and meet and greet and talk to people. Having a back to school bash right in the mall. And how we're going to attract people and say, hey, you thought about teaching? What are your thoughts about that? Sign up right here. Let's talk later. That's what it's going to take. Because, and then when we get them here, we have to treat them right. And we have to be respectful of them, regardless of who it is. But we have to really treat what are we doing for our new teachers? And how are we training and developing them? And in those first 3 to 5 years that we bring them in, and we welcome them, but then somehow we lose them. But I know what I did as a former superintendent, and I know what I do right now, and even as the chief academic officer. Before a teacher resigns, I need to know. And I'm calling the teacher on the phone, and I want to know why are you resigning? And what could I have done better? And what can I do? Now, that is not my sole duty and responsibility, but I take it on as a responsibility because that's how important it is to me that we recruit robustly, but that we maintain those people when we get them. And so we're going to have to do some things a little different. And I know that that may not be happy to everybody, but in order for us to get greatness, we're going to have to go after it in a very different way. We can't be comfortable in our complacency.
Thank you, sir. The question session and answer session have been completed. Now you will have 5 minutes in closing, sir.
Thank you so much. I really want to say thank you to all of you for the invitation to come and interview here in Terrebonne Parish. I feel like this is home because, you know, Thibodaux's only 15 minutes away. But I really and truly understand the work of the superintendency. This is, again, it's a calling for me. This is not lip service. When I would be given the opportunity to come in, you would receive a 90-day, 100-day plan that would actually outline the work that I would be doing and making sure that that work is in alignment with the vision that you have as a board. Making sure that those opportunities to commune with the community, with parents, with students. You may say, well, I don't know how he's going to do all that. I don't know either, but I did it. And I made time for it because that's what our job is. That's what our work is. And if we can't do that, then we're in the wrong position on the bus. And for me, it's not lip service. It's real. And it's important for you to understand that this is my heart's work. And this is what I have been working for all of my life, my professional life. And it's important for you to understand also, excuse me, that I am looking for the place where I can buy a home in Terrebonne Parish. It's just right over the line in Lafourche. But to be a vital part of this community, not just to work here, but to live here, to be a part of the organizations that are in this community is important because people want to know, are you a part of us or do you just drive in every day? No, I'm a part of this community. You know, I have a mom who, you know, if they live long enough, they age, and that's unfortunate. It's hard to see sometimes, but I really want to be where I can spend more time with her and really be able to be a little more active and engaged in community. I miss that because going and coming, and when you're in big cities, you're not always able to do a lot of that, but to really be at home and know that this is home. I bring a lot of experience, bring a wealth of information, but I don't know it all. And I don't mind telling you I don't know. But I'm going to go find the answer. And I don't mind asking people for help. I'm not shy in any regards. So, you know, for me, it is my duty and responsibility to make this a premier school district. And I really want to outdo EBR. But I work there, so I can't say that just yet, right? But I love healthy competition. But I want to be able to bring some of those innovative programs and to our students here in EBR. I know what it takes to do that. I know we can do it. And I believe that once parents begin to see the active engagement and the opportunities and the access that we're bringing for students here in Terrebonne Parish, we're going to begin to see students come back to this district, and we won't decline. We won't see parents leaving and going for other, you know, unless they're moving out of state. But I thank you for this opportunity. I know that, for some of you may say, well, I kind of think I know what I want. But I'm just asking you for the opportunity to unlock your heart and your mind and your soul and to just think about who I am as an individual and what opportunities that I can bring here to this district. And I thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Thank you.
Yeah. At this particular time, I would like to entertain a motion to take a 10-minute recess.
So moved, Mr. Hardy.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, you got a first by Dr. Traham, second by Mr. Legault. Anyone else would like to discuss?
Thank you,
that,
Dr. Robinson.
That
That
motion.
was nice of you.
Yes, sir.
The maker,
No, sir.
Mr. Legault, any board member? Hearing on so ordered. 10 minutes recess. Anyone else like to discuss that issue? Dr. Trahan?
No, sir.
Mr. DeHart? Any board member? Are there any? None here? None so ordered.
Try.
Good afternoon, Mr. Talbot. Again, thank you for the opportunity for coming to applying for be the next superintendent of school board. In my opening statement, stated that you will have 5 minutes of introduction, 20 minutes of question and answering, and then you have a 5-minute closing session. You have the floor now, sir.
Thank you. Well, first off, thank you all for having me tonight as well. It's been a long time waiting for this opportunity. Excuse me. I should have brought that water. For the past 27 years, I've had the privilege, almost 27 years. No, I'm good, thank you. For the past 27 years, I've had the privilege of serving in various capacities in Terrebonne Parish. Terrebonne Parish has been a part of our family, obviously, since I've been on the scene. For 50 years, it served our family well, and I look to hopefully continue that as the next superintendent. I've served as a special education teacher, served as an assistant principal at both junior high and high school levels, got to work with a lot of great people at both schools, and also served as principal at both those schools. Again, got to work with a lot of great people. In that time, we were recognized as a top gain school in 2012 at Evergreen. We were also recognized as a top gain school in 2016 as well as in 2018 at South Terrebonne. We don't do that by being principal alone. We do that with a lot of support, not only from our team of teachers, team of students, also our parents and our community. And so with that, we also need to continue to help maintain that certified force. And that also goes towards our support staff as well as our certified staff. How do we do that? Well, I think we do need to evaluate our pay structure, as I've heard a few times during our meetings recently. I think we do need to maintain and look at ways that our teachers and our support staffs are potentially supporting their own classrooms because they're having to buy things that maybe the school is not aware they need. And I think as superintendent, we need to make a better effort to try to get out there and find out, because it shouldn't be a situation where teachers and support staffs are funding the education of those students, which I know I happen to live with one that does. So I think that's a very important thing to maintain a certified staff and workforce. With that as well, I think we need to teach the Tier 1 curriculum 100% of the time, as much as possible when it's available. Tier 1 is usually aligned with our standards that we're expected to assess every spring. So it is a valuable tool that we can use, and the state does a lot of the legwork evaluating those programs for us that we can use or utilize that to save us time and effort to try to get those curricula in place. I think we also need to make sure to try, I say make sure or try because it's never a guarantee, but to try to get our 4th graders entering middle school on grade level. Our 8th graders entering high school on grade level. Because ultimately, guys, as we all know, there's a ton of dropouts every year, regardless of how they leave. But we know that affects everyone. And it's not just a school, it's not a high school issue. That is a district issue. That is a system issue. It simply manifests itself when it comes to the high school. And finally, or not finally, but 2 other quick points on that, is I also believe, too, we need to maintain consistent, equitable discipline in our schools. We shouldn't have situations where teachers are having to accept behaviors, or even schools accept behaviors. Not saying that's happening. However, I do think we need to make an effort to make sure it's not. Because teachers need to feel that they're valued when they go to school. Students need to feel valued when they go to class. And if we're having disruptions in classes, it prevents that from happening. And we, as a leadership, we need to continue to push that, not pushing kids out of the door, not expelling kids, but giving them the tools, our teachers, our students, our parents even, the tools that they can use to hopefully put them in a position where the discipline issue simply gets corrected. Because after all, we are training them to be productive citizens. And there's not many jobs where I can be written up. I know if I was written up 15 times in a year, I wouldn't have a job. Case in point. If I didn't show up for work 15 times in a row, being late, I wouldn't have a job. And I think we're not teaching our kids what is expected in the real world. And finally, as part of being a superintendent, I think we need to make sure we're taking every effort we possibly can, not just because of the pandemic, and not just because, God willing, we never have another storm like this, but this is taking on a new head of steam because of those issues. But we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to communicate, and I heard that a few times as well recently at the meetings. We got to give the information out to our families. We have to give the information out to our public. Because in a lot of ways, our businesses, if they knew some of the needs we have, if we communicated those needs, there's a lot of companies out there that could possibly help us with the resources that they have to offer. And finally, in making our students more college career ready, which would be my simple way of looking at things, is that all of those things come together when the kid starts pre-K or when the kid starts kindergarten. We start working on the idea of how that student's leaving high school. And in the past 3.5 years that I've been in my position, I've had the fortune to work with a lot of great teams to put different programs together, working with them and analyzing how we can. EMT programs, we looked at a drone program. Many people don't realize a kid can sit in class and play with a drone. But they're walking out with a tangible, marketable skill that at 16 years old, as soon as they pass the test, here, all company, I can go work for you and make some money. So we're doing a lot of great things, but again, I think we need to communicate it more as we move forward. That's a snapshot of what I would do if given the opportunity to serve as the next superintendent. But I thank you again, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Talbot. You must have timed that speech exactly 5 minutes. At this particular time, we're going to start the questioning and answering session, and each board member will get an opportunity to ask a question. We're going to go start on this side here with Mr. Hamner.
Mr. Talbot, the Houma Terrebonne Chamber of Commerce has introduced to the Terrebonne Parish school system 13 points of education that they believe are of vital interest to the community in Terrebonne Parish. One of these points includes early childhood education and the implementation of universal pre-K for all our 4-year-olds. How would your plan for the Terrebonne Parish School District include this, and what is your philosophy of education in regards to early childhood education?
Thank you for asking the question, because I think it goes right in line with what I just finished saying, and the idea that the earlier we can address deficits when a student comes, and I don't mean that to be critical of anyone, but obviously we all know that kids come with different levels of education when they come into the building, even at kindergarten. The earlier we can address that issue, the better. And if we're using a universal pre-K type program, then I think they could definitely start to eliminate some of those issues. Because the unfortunate thing is that if we don't address it early enough, first, second, third grade, then we're putting a situation where we talk about the achievement gap. It will continue to get bigger and bigger the longer we wait to address those issues. So to answer the question, I am in favor of universal pre-K if we can find a way that is feasible and we are able to sustain it from year to year.
Thank you, Mr. Hamner. Ms. Benoit.
Thank you, Mr. President, or Mr. Talbot.
Hi.
So we all realize that education is constantly changing. They're always moving the bar for us. But what would you think would be one recent trend that will have a major influence on school districts for year to come?
I really believe one of the things we need to touch on, it goes back to some of the population shifts, and where it's specifically, just one example, would be some of our limited English proficient students. Because as you can see in our data, even as a district, while the changes are not that drastic, but we went from roughly 700 plus to now over 800 students that are limited English. It's not all Hispanic students, but a good chunk of it is. Using other departments, we're fortunate that, say, our federal department of Ms. Degrees, she's already started looking at and evaluating how we can address some deficits on our end in addressing those issues, and by changing and allowing a class to be set up, working with her and her group. Our high school principal is going to start a speech class, if it stays that name that way, to where these kids will be serviced every day instead of being serviced on a rotating schedule. So that's definitely one example of it. Obviously, given the circumstances we're facing right now, which unfortunately won't be a short-term fix, that will definitely, from the pandemic and then compounding it obviously with the storm, it's put us in a position where we really need to be on board of looking at how we can evaluate our remediation programs, how we can evaluate our courses. Again, working with Dr. Bro and her staff at Special Ed, We already started looking at some of the remediation courses that we're offering at the high school level. And again, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier, that the amount of time that is lapsed between maybe identifying the student, because again, elementary people see it early on where they start to see where these interventions may be more beneficial, but waiting till high school may be too late. I say too late, I don't want to say it too late, but it's definitely going to make the challenge a little bit more harder to overcome. So I definitely think putting intervention programs earlier, but not adding to the teacher's plate, and I think that's one thing that we need to be careful of, is that if we find an intervention plan that is better than what we already have in place, then we should eliminate and replace and not add.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benoit. Mr. Ford.
Mr. Tarbert, you've always been known as a disciplinarian, and for that, I'm certain that if you were to be the superintendent, consistency would be the key. However, over the last couple of years, there's been a trend where our graduates here in South Louisiana and across the nation seem to be lacking those soft skills, even though we've implemented these work keys testing and whatnot. How do you envision, or what do you propose that you would be able to do to help develop those soft skills for our graduates so they are ready to go into the workforce and be productive?
Well, Mr. Ford, to address it, we have courses that are designed that we have right now. Just about every eighth grader in our system takes the course Quest for Success. That course is designed to educate kids about what opportunities may exist in a specific career field, give them some type of training, if you would, when it's what's expected of a company. Those also can be expanded to include soft skill training, to where our students, again, I use tardy because tardy is one of the biggest discipline issues that we face on our high school campuses, and I know I faced it as a junior high too. The catch is that if we don't train them to know that, hey, a job you're expected, just as we have a bell that rings for 7:15 or 7 o'clock or 2 o'clock, that they're being trained to follow a work schedule. And if they don't follow that work schedule, just for one example, then obviously you don't have a job. And I think we need to understand and recognize from the faculty, from parents, even from, continue to recognize, I don't want to, people don't see that, but to continue to see how we're working with kids on soft skills from the moment that they enter the building to the moment that they have a tardy bell, to lunch is even signaled by a bell, and so on. And there's obviously historical references to all that. But so that's what I would say. We have courses that are there to start establishing. The elementary grades, 8th and below, they also have mandates. They have to follow certain career education type guidelines. That's where you can start to put the seeds in place. But the benefit of a high school, even in the middle school, it gives them the opportunity to earn Carnegie credit. They can apply toward their graduation, but it also frees up space for our gifted type students or our honors type students. Some would say, well, why do I have to take the course? But the bottom line is, it is one of the electives they can use toward their graduation. And it also frees up space, what we're trying to do later on, to where we can take advantage of the dual enrollment process.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Mr. DeHart.
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Dr. Trahan.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Hello, Mr. Tolbert.
Hi.
Good leaders are necessary at every level, starting with the superintendent, but especially important at a school. How would you choose those school leaders and develop the current ones that we already have in place? And what would happen should we have an issue with one of these leaders and not living up to expectation?
Try to, if I forget a piece, tell me. Well, first and foremost, when I came out of high school, one of the first steps that I took as an adult was to enlist in the Louisiana Army National Guard. So I started cutting my teeth as leadership and getting versed on leadership early on. Not to mention, too, being the youngest of 4, 2 older brothers, y'all can read between the lines on that. The catch is that, but also those guys as well, my brothers also were active duty Army. So I was really getting exposure to a lot of different leadership styles at that point. If there's one thing that I really took from the National Guard, is that even though we're all leaders in a sense, eventually when you become a leader, is that you all have different styles. We all have ways to do it. It doesn't mean it's the wrong way if it's meeting the standard. And we used to say it in the National Guard all the time, the standard operating procedure. It's meant to be consistent, but at the end of the day, how you get there, how you answer that call, again, as long as you're meeting the standard, and it's legal, it's ethical, it's moral, the bottom line is that you met the standard. And the way I work with my guys now, work with them, is that I'm fortunate that they all have different styles. The administrators that I've had the benefit of working with, they've all had different styles. And I've told them many times over, a lot of the things they do, I would not do it the way they do it. But again, they're meeting the standard. And if they're not meeting the standard, we have a discussion, we look at it, we evaluate it. What could we do differently? Our process of evaluation there's a lot of parallels, those of you that don't know, what we use in the Army as well as what we use in civilian life, is that usually you have your pre-observational conference where you'll talk about it, right? What things are going well, what things aren't, what things need to be touched on, what am I going to see when I go. You do the observation, then you come out of the observation and do after action, which we refer to in the military. The catch is that then you review it, but then you expect to follow up to where those individuals will follow up. To answer your question, I've been fortunate that the administrators that I worked with have not gotten to the point where you have to have the conversation to say, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you're possibly facing termination. And ultimately, that's what happens. And to me, a good leader is someone who knows the power they have. If you depend on that power to lead, you're not leading. And in my opinion, in a way, I'm fortunate to have the guys that I work with. And I'm also fortunate to have the other supervisors that I work with. That gives me the opportunity to bounce things off before, so that, because, hey, we're human. We overreact just the same sometimes, too. Am I looking at this wrong? Am I looking at this right? God bless my wife, because I probably talk to her more than I need to on some of these things. But the catch is that, but it helps me to see it from a different perspective. Because I am fortunate, as I mentioned earlier, for my entire life, my mom's a retired teacher and guidance counselor from the system. Dad taught in the 60s. The catch is that, so it's a good bouncing board to say, what do you, not necessarily being specific about the issue, but talk about the generalities of it to see if this is something that would get another perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trahan. Mr. Lagarde.
Hello, Mr. Talbot. How you
Hi.
doing?
Good.
Okay, Mr. Talbot, I don't know if you realize this. I was a graduate of South Terrebonne High School.
Okay.
And when I came out of high school, I went and visited a lot of different colleges. LSU recruited me, but one of the biggest things that caught me about Granite State University, while in high school, I've never had a black teacher at South Terrebonne. And when I graduated and came back to work, I think I was still the only black teacher working there. Now, statistics have told us, and I have read, and the research have said that African-American kids do better when they have African-American role models in the school. And we know there's a teacher shortage. But I want to know, how would you, or what would you do to recruit African-American males into this parish who could stay, not like the current administration we had that didn't recruit any. What would you do differently than the current administration?
Good question, Mr. Lagarde, because I also saw the stats, too, that if you look at the majority of our faculties across the state are mainly white females. What I would look at, it goes back to what I opened my presentation up with, is making them see not only the benefits and things that we can offer as a district, and thankfully so, but also to see how welcoming we are. And I can tell you, in our day and age, if somebody's passing up a certified teacher that is not, that shows the ability or shows the want, the desire to improve and to develop, then shame on them. And it doesn't matter if they're African American, if they're female. The bottom line is that, unfortunately, it's not to say that we just take everybody, but at the end of the day, we definitely can take, if somebody shows that effort and shows want to drive that, I'll use myself as an example. I was a non-certified teacher when I started. Thankfully, I worked for somebody like a Mark Trosclair and a Sherry Jones. Well, I was certified by the time I went to HL, but they saw something in me that there was a time when they moved me to a different grade level. Not because I screwed up, but because the teacher quit. And frankly, I almost quit too. But the thing is that as I looked at it, and Mr. Trosclair used to happen to be a friend of my dad's from childhood, and I mentioned to him that I told him, I said, he obviously saw something in me that I couldn't see. I only have 2 years. He had 30. And I think African-American applicants need to recognize how welcoming our system is. And definitely it will be a task, it will be a job for us to invite anybody. Again, I go back to you certified, you have that want, that desire. It's a great place to be.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lagarde. Ms. Soleil.
Hi.
You mentioned about getting information out to the community. Very important. And you name some of the methods of which you would do that?
Sure. So obviously with today's day and age with technologies, you have the social media platforms that you can use. I wouldn't rely solely on that. You have the J Campus text messaging system. In that system, you can also send voicemail or voice messages, which I found out after using it, you tend to get a lot of missed calls on that one, so they call you back. Whereas if you do a text, it's a whole lot better, just food for thought. Anyway, but because, they're like me, you don't even play the voicemail, you see a missed call, you call it, right? So, I kind of made that mistake a few times. The catch is that, so definitely the texting, the voicemail if you choose to, obviously the web pages, the social media pages, you can do the letters, but many of us have been in the system. Those letters, you're lucky if it makes it out the door of the classroom. So I would think those would be my primary, but definitely open to other suggestions and other ways that we could possibly look at it.
Thank you, Ms. Soley. Mr. Visor.
Yes, sir. How you doing, Mr. Tarbett?
I'm good. How are you?
Good to see you there.
Same here.
Teachers have a huge influence on children's lives. Many of them feel overwhelmed and somewhat unsupported even before COVID and Ida. Teachers are continuously being asked to add to their plates, which you mentioned earlier. We need to encourage teachers to inspire students. Teachers have the power to impact students' lives positively or negatively. Teachers can motivate students to achieve great things. If you are our next superintendent, how would you address this very important issue that we have facing for several years? How do we get back to letting the teachers teach and inspire our young minds?
I'd like to thank you for the question, Mr. Wozniak, because one thing that stuck with me through the pandemic piece, I know I probably used Kathy too much, but the catch is that Kathy was one of the virtual teachers as well. Come home after teaching throughout the day, then getting online and virtual and this and the other. The thing about virtual, and the reason why I bring it up is because she had, out of maybe 40, 50 kids, she would have on average about 10, 12 kids that would actually join her for the Google Meets. The reason why I bring it up is because you can't replace a quality teacher. I go back to Mr. Lagarde's question, that there's no replacement, in my opinion, no matter how great the program is. I think the kids still need that interaction. So having said that, Ms. LaRose and I often talk about, Ms. LaRose, the supervisor of elementary, her and I, as a matter of fact, earlier today, we talked about the idea that one of the things that we need to do is that it's great that we're getting all these grant funds and it's great that we're getting all this financial support from different avenues, but one of the problems is just what you're saying. It's great that we can get all these programs because everybody's got it's sort of like, I'm sure those of you, unfortunately, that dealt with damage from the storm, everybody could fix your problem, right? It's the same thing with education. We seem to get bombarded with people who want to, we can fix it, and if we throw money at it, then obviously you throw money at it, there's that expectation we put money at it. And I think we have to be careful to take a breath and say, we don't need it. I know finance might be mad at me, but I think we can tell some of the federal grant processes, no, we don't want your money. And we definitely, because if it means that we have to do just that, creating burdens for our teachers and burdens for our support staff too. We can't forget about our paras. We can't forget about those group of people because they work in a lot of ways, and sometimes they work as an extension of the teacher in most cases. So they're getting bogged down too, and they're getting burnt out the same. And so that'd probably be the first thing that I would look at is that what things can we eliminate? Not replace, but eliminate. And working with I wish people knew how strong our supervisor staff is. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about others that help. And we work interchangeably because the programs that Ms. LaRose does at elementary, the programs that Ms. Vauclin does at middle, it definitely affects and ripples up the ladder to us. Because we definitely don't want to see a situation, well, if this school over here is requiring using these programs, well, this school over here doesn't require it, so I'm going to go over there. Then the domino effect of that creates so many issues, and we don't need that as a district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Visor. Good afternoon, Mr. Talbot.
How you doing?
My question is, we have a couple coaches in the audience tonight, and every year it seems like that we have a problem with hiring good coaches and retaining good coaches. And of course, everybody here knows that's dear to my heart when it comes down to athletics. If you go back and look at stats, 95% of kids that participate in extracurricular activity graduate. So to some kids or some students, those coaches are just as important as those teachers, counselors, and principals. if you're selected as the next superintendent, what could you do, or what ideas would you have to possibly to retain more certified coaches, or more pay, or any suggestions?
Yes, sir. It's ironic you asked the question, because one of the first tasks, I guess because Coach McCormick knew me from South Terrebonne, I think that might have been my first call when I was supervisor of secondary ed. What can we do about salaries? What can we do about attracting good candidates? Not to say we don't have them now. First off, let's talk facilities for a second. When you guys voted to put the turf in place, I know as a former official, that's great. That's a great way to update your facilities. It really enhances what our programs can do. They don't have down days and things like that. I think that helps minimize frustration when you have situations, well, we can't practice today because I don't want to tear up the field, or that junior high can't play, or whichever the case may be, because a lot of times our junior high programs feed into the high school. I'm talking about coaching staffs. So that's one thing. We can definitely continue to look at our facilities and see if we're keeping them updated as much as we can based on the feasibility of it. We also can look at, again, go back to the salary structure of how we're paying our coaches. I know there's many different examples of how that's happening across the state. I know next door in Lafourche, they were doing some different things over the years. I'm not quite certain if they still do it the same, where percentages were done based on their salaries, and it helped motivate coaches, and I might add band and other supporting elements. I would consider that as part of it, to see what ways we can entice the coaches to stick it out and stay with it. Because as a secondary supervisor, as you guys know, I also oversee sports. And one of the things that I do deal with is when you deal with the resignations of the coaches, because, well, they got a different job in the afternoon, and especially right now with some of our schools going so late, and the whole deal about that. So it's becoming more and more challenging to entice a student or a teacher to say, come out and coach for us. So definitely those would be my two biggest things, is looking how we can update our facilities outside of hurricane damage, but also how we can also entice them possibly of looking at salary structure and how that can be something that could entice them to come on board. And I might add too, we can ask them. We can bring in ADs, we can bring in coaches. And we have a wealth of knowledge with our coaching staffs throughout our district, and that's junior high, middle school, high school as well. And again, it goes back to communication or information. If there's a way that we can do it and it stays feasible for us to do it where it can be sustained, because that's the last thing too that we want to do is, well, we got to cut two coaches so we can make up for the salary difference. I definitely wouldn't want to get into that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Abbott. The question and answer session have come to an end. Now is this particular time you have your 5-minute closing, sir.
Well, once again, thank y'all for your time tonight. I appreciate even the audience for sticking around. The catch is that, again, my entire life, specifically 27 years in the district, I've missed many things on the family side, not because I'm not a family guy, but because sometimes it's hard to balance. Do you go for that game? Do you not go for that game? I think it helped that I was in the referee for so long. My wife was used to me not being there for Fridays. So it made it easy for me to go catch games. I still enjoy doing that. I'm not stopping that if I happen to be selected, because I think it's important that everybody sees you. I think people underestimate the power of seeing that administrator standing on the sideline, whether the game is in Bossier City, which I've done, and back at school the next morning. It was tough, but I did it. But the catch is that I think it's important for people to see that. It's important to drive, if you have to, across state to Lake Charles to go watch a swim meet. Who knew that was so intense? But the catch is, and almost fell in the pool a couple of times. But the catch, because they put you right on the edge. But the catch is, again, guys, is that graduated from H.L. Bourgeois, one of 4 in my family that did. My wife is a graduate of H.L. Bourgeois, although we do pull for South Terrebonne. The catch is that, and Ellender, I was at the Ellender game too. Couldn't wear a red shirt though, I'm sorry. No, but the catch is, guys, is that we love it here. We even stayed for Ida, and yes, Kathy still talks to me. We were still in the house for Ida, and thankfully we made it through with not near the issues that some of our families are dealing with. As a National Guard soldier, I pulled people out of houses for Hurricane Andrew, and so we know what the devastation can do to families, and we're here, and we're going to stay here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Don't worry about it. Good afternoon, Mr. Washington.
Good afternoon, how you doing? Good evening.
Oh, good evening, sir. Okay. Again, like I stated in my open statement, you have 5 minutes of opening, and then you have 20 minutes of answering questions. Whoever board member would ask a question once, and then at the end of that question session, you have 5 minutes closing.
Yes, sir.
So at this particular time, you have the floor, sir.
Yes, sir. All right, good evening, everyone. First, I would like to thank the board for this interview opportunity to be considered as your next superintendent of schools. I consider this to be blessed and an honor to be here this evening, and I am humble about this opportunity. Because I once worked in this great parish for a number of years with the majority of the leaders who are here, I know for a fact that this system has a dedicated group of educators and board members committed to the growth and achievement of all students, as well as developing the whole child. Likewise, other districts across the state are committed as well to ensure that every child, especially those who struggle the most, have the same opportunity to thrive. To ensure that every child is progressing toward their overall growth target, there must be a structured process in place that allows teachers and leaders the ability to analyze student data, identify academic behavior deficiencies, and select the most effective strategy or intervention to address the needs of his or her students. To continue meeting this challenge will require strong leadership, vision, dedication, and a holistic understanding of the organizational structures that are required for forward growth for all. I'm completing my 25th year in public education, most of which was in Terrebonne Parish. I served as an EBD teacher, English, math, inclusion teacher, option teacher, and behavior interventionist, all while serving as the head football coach, basketball coach, and track coach. Administratively, I served as assistant principal at the 9-12 high school, principal at K-12 high school, alternative school, principal at junior high school, and currently assistant superintendent of administration. Throughout my career as an educator and leader, I've consistently demonstrated my ability to bring about positive changes in various educational settings and communities. As a teacher, I effectively managed the learning environment, differentiated instructions to bring about differentiated instructions to meet the individual needs of students, and showed evidence of student growth and improved behavior. As a building level administrator, I supported teachers by providing strong leadership in a number of ways to include, but not limited to, creating and maintaining a school environment conducive to learning, providing frequent opportunities for teachers to collaborate during PLCs, providing ongoing job-embedded professional development opportunities, and ensuring that informal, formal observation occurred multiple times per year with staff getting regular, consistent, and actionable feedback. In my current position, I've been involved during the implementation of various instructional and administrative initiatives, data team implementation, district walkthroughs, creation of turnaround zones and turnaround schools, scale-up initiatives, restructuring an alternative program, implementing district-wide staff student safety wellness training programs, cost-saving measures, school reconfigurations, and currently the district initiative, Better Facilities, Better Programming, and Better Pay. My success in education has and continues to be manifested by my loyalty to students. My efforts will always be intentional with a laser-like focus to support and develop the whole child. I believe I have the experience, knowledge, desire, and key competency skills necessary to lead this district and meet the challenges that lie ahead. I provided you with a packet that I would like to just briefly indicate what's in that packet. The first one is just an interest letter. The next one would be the 100 days that I would spend 100 days upon if given the opportunity to serve in this capacity. As you can see, the first 100 days will be spent intentionally observing, listening, and learning, analyzing data, evaluating the organizational structure, reviewing financial resources, and auditing physical structures. In a sense, what I will be doing is capturing what the people say, what the data say, what the positions say, what the money say, and what the buildings say. You can see the other bullets there. The next document is a school improvement blueprint. I have implemented this blueprint when I was here, serving at the alternative school at Andrew Price, when I was at Oak Lawn, and when I went with Mr. Odimon in Rapides Parish, and we continue to do that right now. Basically, you see the mission is still the same, the vision is still the same, and the goals. Basically, this is a structure that allows teachers the ability to analyze student data and make instructional decisions to meet the needs of students. Here you have a shared set of principles, that's the 5 essential practices for effective schools, and you have a data team process, which is a collaborative formative model, highly structured collaborative model grounded in formative assessment, and that's with frequent analysis of student data, which allows the teacher to identify the most effective instructional strategies to meet the needs of students. You see there's a 3-step process, which includes the instructional data team, the building data team, and the district data team, along with a multi-tier system of support, okay? Support is provided in 3 levels, basically. It's provided on the school level, it's provided on the student tier level, academic and behavior. So as a school letter grade drop, so does the support is provided. Okay. The next document is just the early literacy strategy measures. We know about the need for kids to be on grade level at the end of 3rd grade. On the next page, you see the measures to recruit and retain highly qualified teachers and support staff. It's not just about recruiting and retaining highly quality teachers, but it's also about the support staff. The fact that if you lose an individual, let's say an HVAC, it is costly when you lose that experience. So it's about trying to retain everyone as much as possible. Those are some measures that I would take to recruit and maintain high quality staff. The next one is just an outline of what I would do in terms of physical plant audit, as well as on the other side, the risk management audits. The next sheet pulling together, that is the framework that I adopted back when I was at Oak Lawn, as well as at Andrew Price. This is a framework for high performing teamwork, okay? And so you can look at the steps right there. The next is just a bullet list of accomplishment that I've accomplished over the years.
Excuse me, Mr. Washington. You're about 2 minutes over.
Okay.
What you can do if on the tail end, if you want to finish that, or if you can finish that off. I didn't want to interrupt you.
That's fine.
But I was trying to give you some latitude, but I didn't know how much longer you have left.
That's fine. Now, the only thing is what's the letters, the reference letters in the back, and you can see it for your reference.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right. All right. At this particular time, what we're going to do now, we're going to start our question and answer session. We're going to start on the left of Mr. Dan Visor.
Thank you, Mr. President. How you doing, Mr. Washington?
Doing fine, sir.
Good to see you. You pretty much covered a lot in that introduction, and I appreciate all that, so I'm going to change my question. If you are our next superintendent, what do you see as being our biggest challenge in Terrebonne Parish, and how do you plan to address it?
Right now, I think the biggest challenge is getting these facilities back up and running. You know, I came here Saturday, and I went around the school, certain schools, and I also just rode around the community, and there's a lot of destruction out there. I mean, and so one of the things I think is getting the schools back in order. The way to, I guess, address that would be to identify your funding sources. One thing you can look at first, I guess, to see how much you have in the special reserve. That would be one option. I'll just go through a couple options. If you look at special reserve, mostly, if you have, let's say, 6 months operational monies in the special reserve, then you possibly can take some monies from there to make those immediate repairs until you can recover from FEMA or the insurance company. It's ideal to have at least 3 months in special reserve, but if you have 6, that'll make it easier to take 3 and go that route. The other way, to make immediate repairs, would be possibly to, I guess, take out a debt certificate of indebtedness, where you borrow money and And you, again, it's like an obligation. It's IOU in a sense. And there's a certain, I guess, rate that you're going to have to pay on that money. But again, even with that option, you have to possibly look at other funding sources that you're going to have to pay for that monthly. So you're going to have to reallocate some money somewhere to be able to pay the monthly bill until, again, you can recover the claims from FEMA or the insurance company.
Thank you, Mr. Visor. Ms. Soleil.
Hello?
My question has been, what communication methods would you use between the district and community? And I see that you covered that, saying that you would hold meetings with our community leaders and businesses and build those relationships. So I appreciate that. Do you have any specific things or ways that you know that we can build that?
Yes, ma'am. I'm one where I'm hands-on, I'm personable. I like to be in person when I'm having a conversation. I think one is just inviting people to the board and discussing concerns, issues. I believe in giving people a voice and hearing their voice. I believe in being open to change and working for social change. We can't discredit when someone has an opinion, whether we agree with it or not. We have to listen. And then that's the reason why I say collect data, listen, observe, listen, and learn. It's about collecting data. What do they see we need to change? What do they say we need to keep doing? Gather that data so that we can make good informed decisions for the people. And then come up with strategies for doing that.
Thank you, Ms. Soleil. Mr. Lagarde.
Hello, Mr. Washington, how you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Thank you for staying so late.
That's all right.
Mr. Washington, everybody pretty much know that I'm the type of person, I like to see the person. I think anybody we hire a superintendent or come in here and have ideas or bring people, but my thing is I like to know the man or woman or person, and so far we don't only have gentlemen. So my question is to you is that what was your greatest professional disappointment and what did you learn from it? Because, my thing is I want to learn the soul of a person, and that's going to tell me how they're going to deal with the community, how they're going to deal with the people they're going to supervise when I know that person I can sleep and feel comfortable with.
So you want to know what is my personal?
Your greatest professional disappointment, and how did you come back from it, or what did you learn from it?
I guess when if I'm thinking about an opportunity when I was working on my doctor's program, something like that maybe. I was working on my doctor's program, and I wanted to do that to enhance my knowledge and skills so that I can better serve the students and the community and my profession. Certain times things came up, and pretty much I end up having to pull back and not completing that. That didn't hurt my knowledge base, my skill. It didn't keep me from growing professionally. I still enhanced that, but I believe that is something that I'm disappointed in myself because I didn't go through and finish it. I don't like to start something and not finish, and it's no different than when I, try to tell kids or model for my own kids, if you're going to start something, you finish it. And so I didn't finish it. So that's a disappointment for me because I look for to be a good role model and a model for even my own kids. And I don't want them to see me give up on something or not finish something that I said I was going to do or that I started. And so, I guess that's for me because I do have kids and I had kids during that time and I didn't finish and they know how I started it. And so I guess that's one of the things, if I answer your question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lagarde. Dr. Tron.
Well, let me begin with my personal experience. It's never too late to finish that doctorate.
Yes, ma'am. I think we were in it together. I don't know.
How would you increase student outcomes by ensuring each student can be the best that student can be? Whether that student is a high achiever or if that student is challenged academically.
Okay. And going back to that form, if you look at that sheet that I provided for you, the one with the
yes, sir.
Right here, it's basically going through that process right there. First of all, when you look at going through this process, you look at the curriculum. You have to make sure you have a good Tier 1 curriculum that's being implemented for fidelity. okay? Implementing with fidelity means that they're aligning the standards to instruction assessment and data analysis, okay? So if they're doing that with fidelity, then they should meet at least 80% of the student body. If it's not being done with fidelity, then we have to provide the teachers some professional developments so that we can. That's one of the things. And the next thing is identifying your students. Identifying your students by tiering the students. You're looking at the tier approach to support, okay? And you're looking at the MTSS right there. That's considered multi-tier systems of support. That includes looking at various sources of data, academic data, discipline data, attendance, various sources of the data to better meet the needs of students. When you tier kids, you're going to provide them support based on where they at. Okay, so you have some kids who are on grade level or can pretty much operate under that general curriculum. They're fine, but those who require a little bit more support, then you provide the general curriculum with differentiated instruction, and then you provide the targeted support. For those that require a little bit more, again, you provide the general curriculum with differentiated instruction to include the target and more one-on-one and intensive support. And so to meet every kid is about constantly diagnosing where they at, providing them the support they need based on where they at, and again, they're going to fall within one of the tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
Thank you. I asked you that because the biggest success I ever had as an administrator is when I challenged the kids to do better than they did themselves and grow, not be looking at how they did compared to other students, but compared to themselves.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Mr. DeHart. Mr. Ford.
Mr. Washington, one of the questions Mike had been asking all night is about recruitment, and I know how intensively you recruit qualified teachers and young enthusiastic teachers, so I don't think I'm going to have to get into that. However, since you've been gone, you seem to have gained a little bit of wisdom, knowledge, as seen by the gray hairs in your beard.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is, of that wisdom and knowledge you've gained and those skills that you've developed and honed, what can you bring to the table here that's going to make our district better?
I think what I can bring is a person who's going to operate with integrity. I lead by example. When I was at Oak Lawn, I wouldn't ask anyone to do something that I wouldn't do. Okay. When we look at the words engage, educate, empower every student every day, those are words that you have to put in action. Okay. You said engage, guarantee an essential curriculum. Well, how do you guarantee an essential curriculum? You have to engage in behaviors to ensure that the curriculum is being delivered with fidelity. One of the measures that I did to do that is to make sure that teachers had to turn in lesson plans daily. And we had a rubric that we measured the level of that lesson, that measured the rigor of that lesson plan. That is something to ensure that, hey, look, planning and preparation is not just a one observation thing, it's over time. When you're looking at providing the culture and climate conducive to learning, we engaged in behaviors to ensure that at that campus. Every day we had established routines, procedures, and expectations that was monitored, modeled by all, and known by all, okay? And it's something that you do every day to model for kids. When we model certain behaviors for kids, it creates an environment where they know what to expect and they can govern themselves. When you look at maximizing academic learning time, teachers had to be ready to prepare when students enter the classroom. They had to have daily dated lesson plans available that would align with the standards and assessments. They had to have bell ringers. They had to have a student-friendly objective and reference it at the set induction throughout the lesson and during lesson closure. That was monitored. We had leadership teams who visit every classroom every week. Everybody saw someone every day. So what I would do is engage in behaviors to ensure that we're meeting these essential practices. And one of the other things is how you communicate with people. I think I can bring people who would want to stay in an environment because of my personality. I'm very firm in terms of what I expect, but my delivery, I can address any person who may have lack of a performance, but it's going to be addressed in a way where I'm not talking down to them. I'm making them aware of certain deficiencies, but I'm also providing them measures to correct those deficiencies. Okay? The goal is to grow teachers, not to just run them out. So it's about providing the professional development to help them be successful. It's about supporting them in every way possible. It's about making them the best that they can be.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Ms. Benoit.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Washington, it's nice to meet you. Your good reputation as an educator from this parish, I know, precedes you, so nice to meet you tonight. My question is about this. New studies reveal the role of local superintendents is evolving, and although it's not clear what the role will become in the future, it seems certain that uncertainty will be the hallmark of the job. That will require a different set of expectations from those of the exiting the profession today. We do see an uncertain political climate that surrounds the schools that will require the superintendent to be proficient in politics and the art of persuasion. Much of the work will revolve around the ability to create and maintain relationships. The modern superintendent will not be just the superintendent of schools whose job is to oversee and manage, but he will be a superintendent that will have to navigate an uncertain terrain with skill and finesse. So I want to point out that it sounds like in this study, the key is that the work will resolve around the ability to create and maintain relationships. So how would you go about creating and maintaining relationships both within the district and the people that work here as well as outside the district?
Okay. One of the things, if you look on that measure to recruit and retain high-quality teachers, that's one of the things I would do. One of the things I believe in empowerment, okay? And this is what I did when I was here at the alternative school. This is what I did when I was at Oaklawn. This is what I do in Rapides Parish. I send an empowering message to employees. And it's pretty much, I believe that it has to come from the top down, okay? You never know what an individual may be going through. And getting the right message at the right time makes a big difference. And I've heard that numerous times in sending those empowering messages to individuals. I'm a personable person, like I mentioned before. I believe that having conversation, go and meet and speak with people and let them know you hear them. Speaking with all staff, not just professional, but support as well. Everyone has a role in this district, and you have to make everyone feel valued, appreciated, and respected for the work that they do. From the bus drivers who pick up the students initially to the cafeteria workers who feed them. Everyone has a role to play, and everyone has to engage, educate, and empower in some way, how we model. So that's one of the other ways. I would also foster a culture and climate conducive to learning by having high expectations. I believe one of the things he mentioned was about facilities. We have to get our facilities back in order, okay? People want to be in safe and secure environments, and we create those safe and secure environments by the structures and measures we put in place and that we carry out every day in our everyday actions. And one of the things is about having a safe and secure and clean environment. Another thing is about providing high-quality professional development for our new individuals. In order to retain any new teachers, you got to provide them with some training. You have to provide them with their first level of training and ongoing training. And you lose people when you don't give them the support they need to be effective, whether it be instructional or classroom management. If they're struggling trying to manage the class and we never provide them with the training as required by Act 136, then they're at a disadvantage. And so when people are happy at work, meaning happy because they're getting the professional development they need in all areas, then they're going to be productive. Productive people are happy people. Another thing is building leadership capacity. I feel like it's a non-negotiable. Building level, we should expect our building level principals to build leadership capacity at their school. No one person runs the school. No one person runs the district. It requires a team effort. And so when you have individuals on your campus with multiple talents and abilities, you need to tap into those abilities. That way your school can thrive even when you may not be there. So that's another area. Look for ways to tap into the talents. One of the ways that I tap into the talents of our staff is that, hey, look, if I can go ahead and assign some task to you, such as, let's say, overtime, for you to do a task for me instead of outsourcing it. First of all, I'm saving money because I'm not outsourcing it, and I'm giving it back to the employees who can do it. So you build morale and you build confidence, and people are going to want to be in an environment where they see that, hey, look, my talent is valuable. They see this. It's appreciated. Recognize and celebrate. We have to celebrate. I think I remember seeing where you guys celebrated the school that won the state championship. We have to celebrate success, even the small ones. Small things just make a difference. And we can't just wait for the big, thing to happen. Anything that's small, we need to just celebrate. And that's one of the things that starts at the school level and also starts at the district level. And again, find ways to incentivize staff in schools for their effort. ESSER money is available to reward staff for their performance, as well as to retain individuals. When I was at Oak Lawn, I had certain monies to utilize, and I allocated to support staff. Now, how I did that? Because we were providing job-embedded PD on the campus, okay? So instead of me trying to get someone from outside to come and do this PD, who's going to charge us, probably going to spend the money somewhere else in another district, I'm going to find somebody who's skilled to deliver that same training on campus and pay the staff to do it. Can't be done during the hours, school hours, it's after school hours, but we can pay them to get the PD that they need, and they get paid to do it. So you got to find ways to incentivize your employee as much as possible, because when you do that, they appreciate you. They're going to want to come to this school system. They're going to feel like it's a culture and climate that supports their employees, that recognize their employees, that see them as valued and appreciated, and that's where you can get individuals. That's the type of personality I bring to the table, and I believe that's what I can do here.
Thank you, Mr. Benoit. Mr. Hamlin.
Thank you. Mr. Washington, the Houma Terrebonne Chamber of Commerce, together with the Terrebonne Parish School Board, have formed a very strategic partnership in education. 4 years ago, the Chamber introduced what they call the 13 points of education that the business community believes to be of vital interest to the citizens of Terrebonne Parish. One of these points includes early childhood education and the implementation of universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds in Terrebonne Parish. My question is, how would your plan for our school system and your philosophy of education fit into that goal?
Well, when you look at early childhood, that's where we got to start. We got to get them on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. That's what the research says, and it's been saying it for a long time. Universal screening, that is something that we have to do with the kids at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and at the end of the year to assess them along the way and provide them the support they need to grow and show growth and be on track for grade level. The new accountability system is addressing that. It's addressing where they're trying to bridge the gap between early childhood and K-3 accountability to create a cohesive birth to 12 grading system. And to do that, you have to have all the assessment tools, the observation tools aligned. And that's what's being done right now. So when you look at it, one of the things, if you look at that strategic measure, I got it lined out right there. The first thing to do is administrative literacy screening to all K-2 students at the beginning, middle, and end of the year to identify reading proficiencies in order to prioritize and plan. That's the first thing. Second thing, use the initial and mid-year screening to diagnose students, identify the most effective strategy to address the needs. Now, the students scoring above, might be able to consider them for gifted programs. Students scoring below, then you definitely want to provide them the support that they need. You want to ensure that Tier 1 curriculum is being taught. That's one of the things I mentioned before. You have to make sure that it's being taught with fidelity to align the standards to the instruction, assessment, and data analysis. Allow for extra time for content, but one of the things that can definitely be done is you look at what's needed in the classroom. First of all, and at the school, for that matter. First of all, it's maybe best to invest in having a reading interventionist at every elementary school, okay? Having a focused literacy instructional coach at every school. We ended up having that when I was at Oaklawn, literacy coach and a reading interventionist. So invest in that. Make sure you provide the necessary to the teachers. Teachers need to know how to utilize these universal screeners to identify where students are at and make the most effective reading plan to address their need. DIBBLES is one of the universal screenings. iSteep is one. STEP is one. And I believe there's a free one that's being offered by the state, Acadian's Reading. That may be one that's offered by the state that's free of charge. So one of the things that I would also encourage is that we want to have almost like what they say, we call it in Rapides Parish a reading revival, where you provide resources to families, because anything that you can do where you can get family involved is key. Provide resources to families so that they can maybe share reading with kids after school, maybe during the holiday. Definitely have a literacy summer camp to minimize the summer loss. So those are some of the things I think, working with various groups, that we can collaborate to make sure that we're doing everything possible to keep kids on track for reading so that they can be on grade level by the end of third grade and continue to progress as they go through the system.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamlin. Mr. Washington, I think in your introduction, you answered about all my questions that I need to ask. So I'm just going to ask you to close your little book real quick.
What you want me to do?
Just close your book real quick.
Okay.
Okay, I would like to know, since you already answered all my questions in your introduction, I think you've been gone 9 years, right?
9 years? Yes, sir.
9 years, okay. And that was promotion, which I think we'll applaud that, because you left our system to go there to be assistant superintendent. 9 years you've been gone. I want you to tell this board, myself, and the public why you would like to come back.
Well, Terrebonne has always been my home, okay? When I did go into the doctor's program, one of the goals was to become the superintendent of Terrebonne Parish. We had to write that and explain that in there. So it's always been my home. When I left to take that position up in Rapides Parish, I never sold my home. I still have my home. That's where I'm at right now. I'm going back there tonight. And I never will. I love Terrebonne. I come down here regularly to go fish, hunt, crab. I do all that stuff. I feel that I can have an impact in this community, the community that I came up. I came up in the small town in Gibson, single parent. I had a lot of people who had an influence on me. It wasn't just family. It was all stakeholders. I remember at Gibson School, it was the custodian, Mr. George. I can go to Evergreen, it was Mr. Chester. I can go to every school and identify someone who has had an impact on me. At HL, it was T-Top. I don't know if y'all know that name, but that's his name. That's what we call him. But it wasn't just teachers. I mean, yeah, it wasn't just teachers. If I look at Bourgeois, it was an English teacher, Mr. Rodriguez. Everyone who has poured into me is the reason why I feel like I need to do it for my kids down here. I consider them my kids. You know, I had a lot of people who believed in me, empowered me, trusted me, and that is how I operate. I've always been fair and consistent. I always say that kids, I'm loyal to the kids. I said to my staff at Ellender, I said it to the ones at Andrew Price, I said it to the ones at Oaklawn, I said in Rapides Parish now. My loyalty is to kids. Okay? Everything I do is for kids. Every decision I try to make, I don't rush it, I try to make it for kids. If it's not for kids, I don't entertain it. That's how I used to operate at school. So Terrebonne Parish, I'm from here. I was born and raised here. I went to school throughout the feeder system. I have family here. I pretty much probably coached some of the kids, maybe the kids or some of the family members out here. Somewhere I've probably touched somebody in here, and it's because that's what I enjoy doing, helping people. And so 9 years, I've really been going 9 years, but I really haven't been going 9 years because I'm down here a lot. This is my home. Even though I'm staying up, this is still my home. And so I would love the opportunity to come back home. And I know it's a tough decision, but, yes, I would love to come back home.
Thank you. Okay, the question session and answer session have been answered. And now you have 5 minutes to close, or you don't close already?
Now, I'll close with this. I want to say these things because I want to let you know what I commit to.
Okay, then.
So first, I would just like to say, as I mentioned earlier, I consider it a blessing and honor to be here this evening and to go through this process. So I really appreciate the opportunity, regardless of the outcome. Effective districts and schools are established and sustained over time on the foundation of strong leadership. High expectation, high quality instructional practices, collaboration, frequent monitoring of student progress, and an unwavering commitment to excellence and high expectations. As your next superintendent, I will be a strong, knowledgeable, decisive, and intentional leader, capable of building upon the initiatives currently in place while enhancing areas that require attention. I will commit to always doing what's best in the interest of all students. As a man of integrity, I've always been fair, consistent, and honest in all of my dealings. To recruiting and retaining high-quality teachers in every classroom and having an effective leader in every school, because every teacher deserves an effective leader, and every student deserves an effective teacher. To ensure the Tier 1 curriculum is delivered and aligned to the standards, instruction, assessment, and data analysis at every level. To bring every student to an increased level of achievement and growth that comes from the rigor of higher standards. To be intentional in supporting all schools to ensure that every child is reading on grade level and progressing toward his or her growth target. To ensure a safe and secure environment conducive to learning. To build a strong homeschool community partnership and lead by example to earn your trust and the trust of the community. To always operate responsibly and function effectively, especially with resources. To ensure continuous efforts to always engage, educate, and empower every student every day, and to develop the whole child. Therefore, if given an opportunity to serve as your next superintendent, I give you my word that I would prioritize student achievement and act in the best interest of all students. I would provide support to administrators to initiate and sustain effective turnaround efforts. I will support teachers by ensuring that they have a strong instructional leader in every school who pride themselves in growing teacher leaders and creating and maintaining an environment conducive to learning. Those are the things that I would commit to if given the opportunity. I've committed when I was here. You can look at my track record. It speaks for itself. You can look at my track record in Rapides Parish. I'm about building community. I'm about empowering. I'm about open collaboration. I'm about hearing from the people. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walton. Before we adjourn, I would like to say a couple things. I would like to thank all the candidates for coming out tonight. I would like to thank the public for also coming. Also, I would like to recognize Ms. Brunet and Dr. Yarbrough, and also the committee that actually put all this together, Mr. Hamner, Dr. Trahan, and Ms. Soleil, for putting the time in to make sure that this event went off without a hitch. Also, I would like to thank the board for the diligency and patience with the interview process. a lot of great candidates, a lot of great answers, a lot of great questions. So at this particular time, item number 6, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. DeHart, second by Mr. Ford. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.